Hello, hello, hello. I think you guys are both in. Awesome. So we can kind of get going
Hey,
pretty quick. Have you guys both seen me do these before? I know Avade we did one for survival, but I think you joined a little late.
I haven't seen.
You haven't seen. Okay, so I'll kind of explain how it works. So the first thing we're gonna do is kind of just go over together, and I'll be sharing my screen a bit about the class tree. That's why we have some Vengeance Demon Hunter representation. Although I'm sure Avade is passionate about Vengeance as well. Has played a lot of it. You just kind of just talk about things you like to see, things you don't like to see, and then we'll just do a couple of builds based on different scenarios and just path through it and talk about choice for each spec, basically. And then as soon as that's over, then we're just going to do Havoc alone. So we'll probably just talk to Evade for that, and then we'll make like a single target cleave and then like a mass AoE build, talk about the decision making, good nodes, good pathing, bad pathing, and just talk about potential changes or things that make could make the class better, or problems. Like there's definitely a few things that I think are kind of weird, but some things that are really good. But first off, what are your all's initial impressions of the class tree alone? Can be for both specs, just total class wide.
The class tree seems to be taking away a lot of the effects of spells and then putting them back in as like extra bonuses. So I'm not a fan of that. But I think it's cool that you can get access to like some vengeance abilities and
Yeah, so
something like that.
that's something that a lot of classes have done, and I think they're still in the midst of really making their full vision of that scene. Because the reality is this, like, part of this is like when people are leveling and they're getting things one at a time. So sometimes when they get the rank 2 of things, they actually want like players new to the game to, like interact with the second rank after they're used to the first rank. But some of it does seem weird. Like for example, making meta a 4-minute cooldown just to pick a rank 2, or a 5-minute cooldown just to pick a rank 2 to make it a baseline 4-minute before you do the choice node. That's something where it's like, okay, just like why though? Like why is that a thing? But the alternative is meta isn't baseline, and then here you're just selecting meta. But I think that's one of the things that has been talked about the most with the class trees, that has been kind of a point within Blizzard that they're trying to get across, is like, yeah, you are going to have to select some abilities because we can't make everything baseline for every spec. So I think some of that's fine. What specifically in the tree are you referring to at that?
Imprison. I mean, just like everything, like the vengeful restraint trait used to be a part of vengeful retreat. The fury used to be fury, like exist on the the mastery movement speed. Your kick giving fury, which I don't mind actually that being a trait. Chaos Nova, blur the Chaos Nova souls. I mean, all of that stuff existed on your class originally. I'm probably missing like a thing or two, but
Yeah,
I
the
think
one.
it's
Throglaive also like only bounces once, and the only way you can get it to bounce 3 times like it used to is to put 1 point into Master of the Glaive and then 1 point into Bouncing Blades. But I mean that ability is not useful unless you take a talent at the very bottom right of the class tree anyway.
Yeah, okay, I can see that being an issue, and they, I think other classes have kind of had this too. The only one to me on the DH tree that strikes me as like very very weird is the I beam, having to spec into I beam, but then also specking into it critting. I guess there's like some decision making to be made there where like it like giving you first strike through initiative, and we're not going to like fully talk about the spec tree right now because there's a whole lot of conversation you can have with the spec tree, but like I guess it's like, okay, well, you'll kind of have like a version of first strike, so like maybe you don't need to spec into this, but it's like typically across all classes, when people have had to make these decisions, they don't feel good making them. I actually think there is the worst possible case scenario is actually Paladin. So Paladin's trees, just to give you an example, like for the meta thing, is like they brought their main cooldown. They made it just, baseline. They make you pick it here. They make you reduce it to 2 minutes. And then in each class tree individually, they make you do a choice node to make it back to give you the crit that it already gives you on live. Right. So like they're basically making you select Avenging Wrath 3 times. And I think this is a way for Blizzard to, increase the amount of points on trees where they're really going to have to stretch for that. Havoc might be the best example of that because there's just so few things. But it all depends on how it plays out, because the reality
That
is
is
this.
something I want to talk about. Like once we get to that tree, is like the fact that like you said, they're ripping the automatic crit out of I-beam because Havoc doesn't have that much. But I think Havoc has so much potential to have new things that you don't have to rip things out of spells and then put them in the tree again.
No, I agree with you. Yeah, we'll definitely get there. But the thing is what you want out of these trees is 3 things. You want New and increased power or access to things you have not had before. That can either be things that other specs have had, things you haven't had in a long time that are nice additions back. This isn't a huge thing for Demon Hunter, except for maybe the new version of Bloodlet. And then, you know, it could be things from other specs. So I think that this tree accomplishes that. You have access to things that you didn't previously have access to that give you a decent amount of power, especially utility-wise. And then for Vengeance, I think power level, their power level from the class tree alone is kind of an insane gain.
Yeah.
And then the second thing you want is you want interesting and actual real choice. So in these class trees, it hasn't always been about choosing between a bunch of stuff that's new that seems all really powerful. It's actually some of the more interesting choices have been being able to actually spec out of things you don't need for specific content and being able to make yourself powerful, more powerful in some way because you don't need those things. These are some of the most interesting choices across all things. This is why your build will actually change. Like in some dungeons or raid bosses, you might not need imprison or consume magic. And then when you don't take those, you actually get meaningfully more powerful in that scenario, that where your spec can gain an edge potentially, where you obviously still have the points to swap into them. And the other thing is just pure choice. So it's actually having the ability to choose those things where, you know, the Havoc, something they do pretty well is they're able to get all their throughput or most of their throughput talents, and they still actually have 4 things or 5 things points to go back up into the tree and grab it, at least when I initially looked at it, to go back up into the tree and grab things that are, you know, very situational, and depending on what situation it is, you can be more specialized into that. And I do think it captures that, but I think there's just some pathing issues.
I mean, it depends, because it depends on like for example, the quicken sigils effect. You know, if for whatever reason Elysian Decree is really good, then you would probably want that, and so then that takes away so many points that you can use.
Oh yeah, you'd have to
yourself.
exactly. You'd have to just run it all the way down, all this stuff that might not be relevant, which is like something that has to do with the class tree. That's a very good point.
Personally, I found that at the bottom, you're kind of, if you you know, assuming the worst case scenario where you have to take Elysian Decree and you want that, you're allowed 1 free point at the bottom and 1 free point anywhere on the tree.
But if you don't have to take it, when I was doing the tree, I think you had like 4 or 5. It was like pretty.
Yeah, if you don't have to take that, yeah, you get like 5 extra.
Okay.
Which is pretty nice.
Yeah, this is good. I actually don't know if he's here right now, but the guy who primarily passed the tree, a lot of people work on the trees, or who's receiving feedback for it. Reels is actually usually in the chat, so he sometimes, if you guys want to open that, can give. If you have questions about something, he can usually give the like thought process behind it. I don't know if he's here today, but he was here when we were looking at it the other day. But we'll certainly watch the YouTube video and have some feedback on it. So something I wanted to talk about is a few things you guys are excited to see in the class tree. And this can be both from a Vengeance or a Havoc perspective. So I'll start. I think Vengeance gaining the Hunt and Havoc baseline gaining the Hunt for basically the entire expansion as like one of the main throughput nodes at the bottom. It's not even really a choice. I feel like you will just always path down and get this for both specs. I think that's awesome. I think it like plays really well into the gameplay, and it's just one of the best possible abilities they could have brought back.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
Yep.
I think Hunt's cool.
What do you think about the choice node under it?
Fame Powered Elixir is really bad. That's like for world questing.
You'd have to find like a super niche scenario for that to actually get value, right?
Yeah, I think
like actual content.
If you're thinking about an actual content, it's literally never used in raid outside of like in the most niche scenario possible. But the idea would be using the Hunt when mobs are low, and it wouldn't. And again, the text matters, because some of the text when things are killed means that you have to get the killing blow on them, which makes it immediately terrible, like world questing only. Or it's like when they die with the dot on them, it gets a reduction. So it means that you'd be able to hunt every pack in Mythic Plus, but only when you use it at the end, which is like super weird gameplay. So yeah, I would also agree with you.
Well, it's only 12 seconds per, and they only applies a dot to 5 targets. So at maximum, you're getting a 60-second reduction, assuming everything works out perfectly and they die before the last tick.
So I think maybe like a different idea on that. What else do you guys like to see in the tree? Good things.
Like to see, or like in the tree? I mean.
No. What are things you guys are glad are in the class tree that are nice additions to either Vengeance or Havoc?
I love having an AoE stun, personally. I felt pretty helpless on the utility side of like stuns and stuff as Vengeance for a while, and having that is really huge for me, at least.
I'm sure having Blur for Vengeance is like unbelievably broken.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna be sick as well.
I think that's something that we talked about for a while. Was like when I remember when Vengeance was like very off meta in Mythic Plus and in raids for like an entire. It was like for the better part of 2 expansions almost. before this X-Pack. And people were wondering how to make them better. First one was like, okay, give darkness to Vengeance, which was like a slam dunk, and they did that. But the other one was like, oh, we'll give Vengeance blur. And it's just like, well, okay, let's hold up a second. Like, giving a 1 minute 50% dodge, dude, forget the fact that it also reduces damage taken by 20%, because it does still do that.
Is that confirmed?
Yeah, Real said that in my chat the other day. I don't know if he confirmed that for Vengeance, because it does say it in extra blue text right here, but he did confirm that the damage reduction for Blur will be baked into the spell. He also mentioned that a few rank 2s that are currently in the tree are meant to be baked into the actual spell in the next build. I don't know exactly which ones he's talking about. That could be the meta cooldown, that could be I-Beam crit, a bunch of those things, just to be clear. So some of this stuff will receive constant iteration. Also, the other tree that he was largely a part of was very, very good. So yeah, Vengeance is getting a stun and blur, which is like stun, blur, and darkness for Vengeance. Without even seeing their spec tree, I feel like that is just a massive increase in power for them for sure.
Looking at this for Vengeance, I'm like, if I was a Vengeance player, like I'm actually like super excited with the class tree just because of those spells. Havoc, I don't really think there's anything super exciting. Maybe the sigils are kind of cool. You get like extra utility. But everything on the Havoc side is pretty much stuff you already had, just given back to you if you decide to select it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find something that isn't just something you already
it's just the sigils. And it depends on how often it fits into your damage rotation. So like, for example, Sigil of Flame now also generates Fury. So if you're taking that as Havoc, it's a Fury generator and in potential...
Like... Yeah, there's a problem with that spell in that it literally does no damage at all. And you have so much Fury now as Havoc that the Fury is like worthless. And even if you wanted to get the Fury that for each target you hit, you have to go through a trait that is really good for Vengeance, but is like not good for Havoc at all, just to get that. And I mean, it's 2 per. I mean, in a general pack of 5 mobs in Mythic Plus, that's 10 more Fury. That's like for 3 points. That's a lot. Yeah.
So one thing they haven't really started doing, or actually they just started doing it for the classes who've had their trees released for a while, is they just started the tuning phase. So like when they first released these trees, the idea is purely class design above all else, and then just where the numbers and the Fury generation fall will be massively changed. Like Warriors so far, week on week, have seen completely different Fury generation or Rage generation situations, because that just has to be balanced with a bunch of the stuff being added. But I agree with you, dude. I played the like big AoE, basically every AoE talent you could think of in Mythic Plus on Alpha a couple days ago. And that's without like I didn't have critical chaos. I like missed so many things that give you Fury, and it was still just you had so much more Fury than you would ever want. So it was definitely something for them to look at for tuning wise. But yeah,
I think if it just did like a decent amount of damage, it'd just be fine, right? Because Demon Hunter had all of its AoE is just like cooldowns. And so when you run out of those cooldowns, having 1 extra cooldown that actually does good damage is good. But right now it just does like less damage than a Demon's Bite on single target. So
and
it's like not even worth pressing.
And do you want to know something that I found super interesting playing Havoc as well, like with the addition of Sigil of Flame, is I think Havoc has been known for a while as like a class with not a ton of keybinds. I was making a like, you know how like Kevin's UI looks, Avade?
Yeah, I think I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah, like I made like Kevin's UI on Alpha with just Blizzard default bars, just to like have those buttons unbound just in the middle of my screen, just so I could see them, and it was actually Windwalker size. Like the amount of buttons you'll be pressing on cooldown that you need to track was like kind of a.
I'm really happy about that. That was. So going into this, that was like the first, like the one of the main things that I was looking for is, could I make a build that only had no rotational abilities? And if I could, I would be unhappy. I was like, okay, this is bad, but you actually can. You have to take a lot of different cooldowns. Like, you're forced into First Blood, which is a good thing.
And then also, yeah, again, there's so much to talk about in the spec tree, but I kind of just want to path down the class tree real quick. And then I want to talk about a few of the other choice nodes, because I think to me, they came across to me as like kind of weird. So we'll just start from the top. So
yeah, I know what you're gonna say.
Well, there's a couple down there that are the problem, but like this, like sigil thing. So like the choice node for sigils, although it can be completely avoided, but it's like you want to kind of get down to the max health node if you're talking about, if you're really invested in this tree and getting all of the possible defensive or offensive throughput nodes where it's like the max health and the max magic damage taken reduction talent, that is you have to go through some stuff that's kind of weird. So you have to like get precise sigils or concentrated sigils, or just get spectral sight. I mean, like this is like totally useless in like almost all content.
Yeah, my problem with that is that in the trait that's a choice node, there's like a situation where I would rather put a point into it, get nothing from it, and
Yeah.
then go down
Yep.
to the health.
Yeah, exactly. You like placing sigils at your location or your target's location. I'm almost positive that in all scenarios, I think it's like a casual. So this is weird. In a couple of specs, they've made parts of the spec intended for easier play and for casuals. This has been a thing. Like they made single-minded fury for warriors. They're like, we don't want this to be competitive with Titan's Grip, straight up. We just don't. But if you want to play it, like it can be like a lower APM, easier spec to learn or something. Maybe that's their idea with this, by like giving you the option to have sigils place your location. It's something that like a casual player would take to just like, because that's part of the people they designed the game for. But like no one would actually want to do this if they're playing at an optimal level, because you want to place it with a cursor macro, right?
Yeah, I mean you can already do concentrated sigils at your like with a macro. It just increases the effect of the sigil. Like that's like the main benefit of that trait. And then the other one is just like, I don't know, like they could allow you to macro it to your target's location if that's something that you want. I just don't feel like that should be a talent, or you know what I mean? I don't know. Or it should be like placed at the target's location and does some extra effect or something.
One thing when you're looking at pathing in trees like this is you never want to have a point that you want. You have to go through a point that has nothing to do with it whatsoever and completely optional. It's the only way to get there. So the only way to get 4% max health on this tree, on a tree where you have a fair amount of points you can kind of spend wherever, you have to go through 2 nodes that could be completely irrelevant to you or actually harm you to get there, which is, it just seems that's just a weird pathing thing. Like there should be an option to get to Will the Illidari that doesn't involve getting 2 things you would basically never want.
Yeah, I mean, for Havoc in particular, you really don't want a lot of the stuff to get to that. Like, you don't want Lost in Darkness, obviously. You don't want
Charred Warblades.
No. I mean, Charred Warblades is cool, especially for Vengeance, but it's just not very good for Havoc. And then you have to get Consume Magic, which is super situational. You're not always going to need that. So you're going 1, 2, 3, 4 points, or 5 points because it's a 2-point, just to get 4% more HP.
Then the next node I wanted to talk about is this one. So my biggest hope for going into this tree, I stated, was I think they data mined it, so it was obvious that there was going to be a choice node between having a shorter meta and something else. I was hoping that something else was not actually going to be demonic. It was just something, a talent node very similar to what mages have with Kindling and Fiery Rush, and what hunters now have with their Giga True Shot, or basically their version of Kindling, calling the shots. I was really hoping that it would be you can have 4-minute meta, but it's just a actual 4-minute cooldown, right? Like some issue that Havoc has had this expansion. We'll talk about Vengeance in a second, but an issue that Havoc's had is they've had a super long cooldown for multiple years, and it's also weaker than a lot of 2 and 3 minutes, where I would love the choice node for this to actually be your meta when you use it is a long cooldown still, but it's very impactful. Not Venthyr Moonkin level, but just under that because of the cooldown duration. But they decided...
So you're saying if it was 2 minutes, it should be more impactful?
No, I'm saying that one option, the one on the right, Demonic Origins, makes sense, all good. And then the other option is meta is the 4-minute cooldown that it is now, except it's just way more powerful when you're in meta. To make it actually a true 4-minute that you could kind of balance around. Or basically there would be a real choice, right? It would be, okay, on this fight, I don't actually need to have meta up in the 2-minute window, and we really need damage to carry this part of the fight. And like meta is actually a true to form. Okay, it's 4 minutes, so it's going to be, twice as good as the average 2-minute or whatever that would be. But then they ended up making it demonic. But the issue with this is that demonic is kind of just always better than Demonic Origins, right?
By a lot right now, yeah.
It's the same for Vengeance. Yeah, it's like not even a choice for Vengeance. So,
and that's I don't think the necessary answer to that is buffing Demonic Origins. I think it's to me, demonic feels core to Demon Hunters. It feels like very similar to Whirling Dragon Punch for monks, in that yes, it was like a last row talent, but it's been happening for so long that it's just part of your class. And I would rather have that somewhere else on the tree where you're getting that passively, and then iterate on the actual metamorphosis cooldown in other ways. But I want to hear your all's take on that.
I think trying to make a super meta for Vengeance would be really awkward, just from like a tanking perspective, because I've never really felt like meta is weak. So like trying to compare it to a shorter meta would probably be pretty hard. But I definitely don't like Demonic competing with a shorter meta cooldown.
For Havoc, Demonic is like super important for the Havoc tree. Like there's a lot of traits that are
Yep.
kind of built around you having
Yep.
Demonic.
You extend demon forms. Leaving
Yeah.
demon form grants you things. Yeah, all that's entering demon form grants you things.
Yeah. So in that regard, in this current design, it makes very much sense to just have Demonic, just always. I personally don't believe that you need Demonic to make the class. I don't think of it as a Whirling Dragon Punch, but I mean, I know a lot of people do, and it's been a part of the class for so long. So I think, the quickest easy fix is just to make Demonic baseline and not make that choice node. In response to what you said about the 4-minute cooldown thing, if they make meta really, really strong and make it a 4-minute cooldown, Demon Hunter is going to be very weak outside of that cooldown. And it's going to be like Venthyr Moonkin, where you're just useless outside of your cooldown, because they'll have to balance it like that. I'm not a fan of that. I think Demon Hunter's always kind of been cool because it's always done damage. Like it kind of always has damage. It's not cooldown oriented.
Yep.
And that's, a lot of people look at meta and they compare it to something like Ashen Hollow, and they're like, man, meta is so much worse than Ashen Hollow. And Holy Palette can do more damage than me, but
Holy Paladins also have massive, massive valleys in between those giant highs. To
exactly.
make up for that. Yeah.
Your meta might not be as strong in your 4-minute window, but you're stronger, for the remaining 3 minutes and 40 or 3 minutes and 30 seconds.
I think that definitely comes with criticism from a lot of DH players, though, because at the same time, while it is a good combat niche to always be powerful and always have good damage, these are really valuable in like Mythic Rating, for example. But it also kind of feels bad to have a super long cooldown that you press and it doesn't actually really affect your damage that much. So I feel like there's two sides of it, right?
Yeah. So my opinion of meta has always been that I wish that they would, because what is meta, right? It's haste, more Chaos Strike damage, more Blade Dance damage. That's it. So I think meta should be maybe more interesting. Obviously, I don't know how much they could work on that, but just enhancing abilities. Some of the traits that you might see in the tree could be things that work in meta and don't work outside of meta. So like while in meta, your Blade Dance can refund Fury depending on how many targets you hit, or your Chaos Strike hits an extra target, or your Fel Rush leads like a fire line on the ground, something like that. Basically make meta more interesting instead of just being a flat damage increase on 2 spells and give you haste.
Well, I think that's possible without actually changing Demonic. Like imagine Demonic right now is exactly what you're describing. It has all the things that interact with it in the Havoc tree, and it's also just haste, and then you do more damage with Chaos Strike and Blade Dance. But imagine the 4-minute meta could even just be a different spell ID, right? It could just be a more enhanced, powerful version of that, to where you are accomplishing both things at once. You're making your cooldown feel better and feel more impactful, while also not making Demonic way too strong.
I think that this is just my opinion. I just don't think putting so much power in a 4-minute cooldown is what I would want for Havoc. But if people did want that, then that would be a good option.
Yeah, that's what I say. And that's literally the point of a choice node, right? Is to have that option. You could literally could have your choice node in without the use of better words, could just say do damage all the time or have big burst. I guess what your point is if
it might be too much of a difference.
Yeah,
be too important of a talent. I mean, from a design perspective, I mean that's a good idea for sure. But I don't think I would. I don't think I would want that. All right. I don't know what other people might want, but
so again, just one more choice node I really care about is the Darkness one. So something they did is they made Darkness a 5-minute. I believe it's a rank 2 on live that makes it 3. So if you've noticed on a lot of trees, they've just incorporated the rank 2s as like following nodes and stuff like that. On a lot of them, they've reverted it. And like I said, the developer for this did say he was baking in some rank 2s with some stuff. But the Darkness here, what do you think about this choice node specifically in raids? Like, I guess Vengeance probably doesn't have too much of a take on it because like you're just gaining Darkness as the baseline 3-minute regardless, but it also has some potential value. Do you really see many situations in raid where you would actually take the 10-second Darkness over the 3-minute?
I think if maybe that was designed to be slightly longer, or instead maybe like 5% more chance to dodge, just something a little bit more, maybe. It's super niche to have 2 seconds extra. It'd have to be one of those spells that is very important to Darkness. You only have to do it once every 5 minutes, and you need the extra 2 seconds because maybe the boss does like a 10-second cast and it just hits like 100 times a second or something and does so much damage to the raid, and you need that extra 2 seconds would be so much DR as opposed, and it only happens maybe like once or something.
So I actually
it does have value, but I think it's very unlikely to be better than the 3-minute one
I,
generally?
I could think of one scenario in this expansion where it would have been better, and it wasn't even a progression boss. So progression Kel'Thuzad, you had 3 minutes in between everything, so you could darkness every single hit, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
but
yeah.
new-
you can get the
but-
initial hit and all the ticks.
Yeah, but the new Kel'Thuzad is actually... Well, no, on old Kel'Thuzad, I still think you'd run a 3 minutes, so you could have it for every ice spike. But remember when they changed Kel'Thuzad and buffed it to where you can't wait 3 minutes in between every phase? You would just want to have darkness for the first set of spikes and the third, right? So
Yeah, that makes sense.
in that scenario, 5 minutes would be the same as 3 minutes, and the extra 2 seconds would be really insane because you would, like you said, it would give you the option to actually have it down for all of the damage instead of part of it.
Yeah. What I really like about this choice node is that, like, it feels, at least it's like, it's something to think about when you're playing a DPS. How do I want to help in the raid? I definitely think the 2 seconds is not enough of a
Completely agree. I think it's a good. I think it's an excellent idea for a choice node, though. It's basically like shorter cooldown darkness or Giga Darkness. It's just that the Giga Darkness isn't Giga enough. It needs.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
maybe
it doesn't
radius
even need to
increase
be-
too.
Yeah, I was just about to say it could be 2 extra seconds and a little bit bigger or something like that.
Yeah, so that's definitely nice. Okay, so I'm going to path this in 2 different ways. So I actually want to talk. Have you had a good amount of time to look at the Vengeance tree, T1, and like how you would path it? Okay, so what I'm gonna have you do, and I'll have Avade go second, is that I just kind of want to see what kind of decisions Vengeance is making, and just kind of go down the tree. Important for this, just to show as much choice as possible. In cases where it is applicable, I like to stop at 8 when you filled in 8 at the top. So you can move on, fill it up to 20, do your capstone node, and then what it's interesting at that point is to look at the end and see how many points you have available at the end. So don't, like, for example, in a perfect tree, if you have 13 points in the top for some reason, like, don't do those immediately because a lot of those are not required. They're optional. So you would just go and fill those in later just to show, like, once you have everything you actually need, where are the points you have to show what you want or what could be good in a specific scenario. So let me actually wait. Can you even set it to Vengeance? You probably can't. Oh, you can't. So I don't know what Vengeance is going to start with, but I imagine it'll actually start with Sigil of Flame. So we're going to have to guess. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick the Sigil of Flame thing. Are you going to pick Vengeful Retreat as Vengeance?
I think you end up having to get to 8.
Okay.
I think Vengeful's good, though.
Okay, then we don't even have to think about it because the alternative would just be you spending the point in Vengeful instead of Sigil of Flame, so nothing actually changes. All right, so where do you path it down?
I'm definitely looking to go for Shattered Restoration and the healing one directly below because they're like immediate throughput things. And the last thing I kind of want is the Immolation Aura crit damage one to the bottom left.
Okay.
But I think the main thing I'm trying to avoid, unless I need Imprison, is the 3 points in Glaive Toss from the top.
Now, the only way that potentially changes is Havoc got a version of Bloodlet that came back as chaos damage. I think it is very likely, actually, that Vengeance Demon Hunter gets some Throw Glaive related throughput talents. So
yeah,
we'll kind of hold the phone on that, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's like the weird part is I don't know if they're gonna put a bunch of power into Throw Glaive or not. But right now, I think I would rather get the slow on Vengeful Restraint.
Okay.
And then get through to the Immolation Aura damage to the kick one.
So do that increased range, and then you do have 8 points now, but you definitely think the Immolation Aura crit chances something you'd take for throughput. That's fine. And then would you also take the Mastery increases movement speed to path down here? Or are you ignoring a lot of this stuff?
I would just ignore all of that, honestly.
Okay. And also Evade, by the way, and this you can comment on any of these decisions as well at any point. It's not like very strict, just kind of an open thing, and he's the one leading down the tree.
Yep.
Yeah, and then obviously the meta one is just an insane talent, and then Infernal Armor is really fucking insane. We got to get that. And then the Leech one is also really insane to the left.
Okay. So something they did in this tree that I really like, I think this is a very underutilized thing in class trees. You finish at 8 points, and you actually don't have to path to this giga important thing at the bottom. It's just kind of available to be picked. So Evokers did this with Tip the Scales. I think, on the top of my head, there's another class that did this where they just have it. Oh, it's not Rogue, but that's something I think that more trees could do, because it is a consistent. Oh, it's druid, yeah. It is a consistent problem of pathing near the middle of the tree. When they have like the giga important, you always are going to take this node, and they acknowledge that. Not every single node on the tree is going to be an actual choice, just most of them. I like that they do this. So, like the alternative, for example, in most trees, just to show a problem area of this, would be you would have to select Aura of Pain to get to meta, which would just be bad for Havoc, right? Potentially, depending on your talent build.
It could be bad for Vengeance if they don't give us the Immolation Aura Conduit as well, but I think that'll be there.
Wait, did you say you say Aura of Pain wasn't gonna be good for Havoc?
No, I said in the case that it wasn't, because this isn't always Aura of Pain. Like, for example, imagine if Charred Warblades was here and you had to go through Charred Warblades to get here. I just like that they did that. All right, where are you going from here?
It's definitely good, yeah.
Demonic required talent.
And same thing for Vengeance. You think that Demonic and Demonic Origins is just not a good choice node, right? Because they're both saying more uptime on meta. One is just better than the other, and I think that the choice node could just be better than that.
Well, the shitty thing about Demonic even being on the tree at all and not being baked in is that if you don't take Demonic, you actually just kill the ability Feldev. Like, you unbind that ability if you don't have Demonic. It's DPS global for half your Fury bar. That does nothing for you. So, I don't know. Demonic being on a choice node is just weird to me.
Okay.
So, from here, the weird decision that I have to make is whether or not I'm going to have a Legion Decree or not. Because if I don't have a Legion Decree, I don't really always care about Misery. And obviously I don't care about Quickened either if I don't have a Legion Decree. So this is like a weird speculative path, but I'm sure we're getting a Legion Decree, so I'm definitely going that route right now.
Yeah, I would highly agree with you. I think that's true.
And then Chaos Nova is
depends on
insane.
the encounter. Yeah, in raids we won't select this a lot of the time. Actually, let's actually do Mythic Plus here first, because that's where you primarily do it, and actually think about where, as this tree is done, talk about, before we move to Havoc, just talk about like maybe what you could unselect in raid. And the reason why you would do this is to see what you could spec into alternatively and how it would make you more powerful. So so let's do Chaos Nova, and then what else? You need actually 3 more points to even unlock the capstone level. So where are you going back to put those?
This is the weird part, because like Purge and Imprison and M+ specifically are pretty situational. But we can probably pretty reliably put it into Purge and an extra Glaive Toss for Gathering. And really, you're probably just putting it into a Glaive Bounce or Movement Speed.
Fellblade is not an option?
I mean, if it does a lot of damage, it could be good on, like, boss fights. But it is kind of a shitty global.
Okay.
It's just a generator for a resource that you're kind of overcapped on most of the time. So you could also take Disrupting Fury, but again, you're kind of overcapped on Fury the whole time. So this specific point doesn't really
matter too much. Yeah, we'll just throw it into just throw glaive ricochets, and we'll just talk about that later. Not to mention that this could be, you could even talent out a Purge, for example, and just throw it all into throw glaive and be like, okay, there's probably going to be a bloodlet kind of thing. So
I feel like stretching for the health and the magic resistance traits are better than going for so many of the utility traits, even in Mythic Plus, unless you absolutely need Purge.
So you'd say like just slamming something cringe like Lost in Darkness just to get to the max health, or the magic,
and then do the same on the other side and get rid of the Vengeful Retreat slow, because I mean it's useful, but like you're comparing that to damage reduction on a tank.
I think the issue that ends up happening is you have to put more points than you want to get to both sides. Maybe pick one side. So I would say the max health is better than the DR.
Yeah, I was about to say both sides. We'll come back to the other side later. Let's just do the max health one instead of the stuff up here, and then we can still get everything. Yeah, okay, so we have the Vengeful Retreat slow. We have the magic damage reduction. We skipped out on the Throw Glaive talents. We don't have Purge or Imprison, but we can talk about potentially talenting into them later. And now we've unlocked the capstones with all the stuff you had previously mentioned, but with the max health node. But I will say that it does feel like the magic damage taken and the max health node are very out of the way, and getting to either of them feels bad. That is definitely a note to the tree.
Yeah. Also, like every single thing you could put into the bottom of the tree is just so much better than the top of the tree that if you spend an extra point in the top of the tree for Vengeance, it's probably going to feel pretty bad, no matter what you're going for up there. Misery and Defeat's not a talent.
Yeah, they need to relook at this because it just this is a terrible thing.
So there is one scenario where that's actually potentially insane. It's in the game right now. It's Iron Docks in the Gauntlet. If you can kill stuff with the environment, that talent could actually save time. But
that is
so niche that it's like
yeah.
But yeah, that's it. That's the only time that can ever be a relevant talent. So anyways, we're taking Blur. That's the most required one. I like Demonic Appetite. I don't know what Avade thinks about this, but I'm just gonna assume that it's gonna say Fracture and I'm getting Fury per soul fragment. Obviously, it doesn't.
That seems like it would
yet,
be broken if it was Fracture. You just press Fracture, spend the Fury, and then just get it back. You could never be out of Fury.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I don't care about the Fury generation in the top, is because that thing exists. But yeah, I like that talent a lot, the way it reads right now.
I think it could also apply to some other things besides Fracture and still be potentially not broken and valuable, right? So it would just be kind of designed a little bit differently for Vengeance.
If I had to guess, it might be Soul Cleave, because Chaos Strike and Soul Cleave share similarities.
Yeah, definitely.
In like tooltips and stuff.
One thing I want to ask about is, do you guys think it's kind of weird that Desperate Instincts is a capstone?
Very, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of needs to be redesigned in a different way.
I feel like it can almost be a choice node with Blur. Like, you just choose Blur or you choose Desperate Instincts, and Desperate Instincts obviously just gives you Blur plus this, because like you don't really want either. Like, I know it's technically a buff to Blur, but like it's also something in a lot of scenarios, because it gives you less actual choice. You would just take this, and then the reality of that is I feel like everyone would just take Blur every time, and that's kind of the point. Is like Desperate Instincts kind of isn't good enough, right?
I think the only place in M+ where I would like Desperate Instincts is like a tyrannical setting, where the hardest part of the key for me is a boss that just punches me really hard. That's like the only spot where I think Desperate Instincts would be better than Blur. But I do think it shouldn't be the capstone, and I like the choice node with Blur that you proposed.
What do you think?
For Havoc, I mean, Desperate Instincts is just super niche. But I mean, for Vengeance, definitely less niche.
I mean, dude, the fact that it's a 30-second cooldown, right? So if you just never pressed Blur and you only let it proc when you went below 35% health, and I mean, you alongside with Blood DKs are two of the tanks where going below 35% health is much more normal. I feel like it just potentially gains a lot of power level, because you're just having Blur up twice a pack on higher keys, or just every pack in lower keys. I feel like that's really, really good.
Well, it becomes a 5-second duration when it happens too. It's not a full time.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I struggle to see a time where I can get to 35%, especially in trash, without just literally dying if I don't press the ability that Desperate Instincts would be substituting.
And I also feel like there's a dependency issue too, right? Because couldn't you just take the choice node of Chaos Nova, never spec Blur, and take Desperate Instincts? And how is this supposed to work? So now you get Blur with Desperate Instincts, but you never would have had to spec into it anyway. It just seems like this whole left side of the capstone tree just seems kind of strange.
Yeah, it's a little weird to me, for sure.
I actually had an idea for Blur a long time ago, but I forgot what it was. But it was basically something similar to how Desperate Instincts works, but it gives you the control of using it instead of losing control. Because I think one of the main benefits of Desperate Instincts is in PvP, where it can proc in a stun whenever you get brought below 35. And in PvE, that's just, I mean, it's almost never been chosen except for like Fallen Avatar. So if they could design it in such a way where you don't lose control, or maybe it only procs if you're CC'd or something, it could be much better.
I don't think I'm personally taking Desperate Instincts.
No, yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's kind of the issue, where the capstone thing for this seems weird. So just a little history of class trees. Class trees are usually very hard lined into complete like damage level capstones. As soon as you unlock the capstone abilities, it's just throughput. Just pick which powerful throughput you want. Mage, DK, most of the classes. And then there's classes that have just gone full utility. So the bottom of these class trees is, okay, they're really powerful utility, but you have to pick which one you kind of want. You can get both of them or whatever. Obviously, Fuhrer needs to be redesigned or whatever, but like, different trees have done this well. And then there's been a couple of hybrid trees. You guys are one of them, where I think the way they want you to interact with this is they see both specs at all times going down to get the hunt and the node under it just 100% of the time. This is the only throughput, basically, besides kind of a little bit of quick and sigils that's in here, and the rest of it is utility. So the idea is, okay, we know when you're getting to this point, I'll take blur out of it. You're going to spend 3 points every single time. It's always going to be on the throughput node because that's how people play the game. And then you have the rest of it. And I just think it's an interesting mixture of the two philosophies that have existed for other class trees in the game. And I think it ends up working okay. I just want to like kind of see that but it doesn't seem like the utility really seems like it's cool. Like look at what the other nodes do this. Like you're choosing between, you know, Heart of the Wild, Nature's Vigil. Again, this needs to be redesigned. On the Shaman tree, you're choosing between, you know, Ancestral Guidance, Improved Call of the Elements. Not great for every spec, but like some specs have really nice integration with this. You're choosing between a new like party-wide cooldown, like potentially high power level things. You guys are picking between quick and sigils and a version of blur that makes it worse. I wonder if they could add the bottom of these to be something a little bit more powerful.
Yeah, I don't really know what they could add, honestly. You know, I'm actually a fan of where there's not throughput traits because, like you said, that's how people play the game. Because that's how you play the game, it's just automatic. Like, it is 100% decided that I will take the hunt as Havoc every single time. No questions asked, because it's like, do I want utility or damage? And sometimes you can make that choice, but it almost always feels really fucking bad. I don't know. I would like a more, like, I'm not saying to remove the hunt at all. I'm just saying, like, you know, if that last row wasn't the hunt, but it was just like 3 different unique good utility decisions, I think that would be a good solution. But then I guess it would be different from the other
I
trees
feel like
if they're all
it's
similar.
accomplishing the same thing. Like let me paint a picture for you of like what most class trees in the game look like. Okay, so I'll just like fill out a lot of random things here of stuff you could want. This will not be entirely accurate, but just to kind of move down the tree, get most things that matter. You know, just like some sack traits, unlock that. You know, probably move up, get Devotion Aura, get Blinding Light, whatever. Okay, now when you get to this level of the tree, your choice is over. Whatever of these nodes, depending if you're AoEing for the Consecrate one, you get Seal the Crusader, Mad Paragon. You go down here, you grab Blessing of Spell Warding, you get Seraphim or Sanctified Wrath, and then you have 3 points in the tree left. Avade, which one do you think you're selecting? Any of these choice? Again, this Paladin class tree is probably still the worst one in the game now after the rest of them have been changed. But like,
Have you got all the damage traits?
that's exactly what I'm about to show you. Right here, you have 3 points, which all increase the mastery during your main cooldown by 4% each point. And you're slamming that 100p every single time. You're slamming that instead of ever thinking about going up. So what your tree has, as opposed to that, and a few other trees are able to select this, Shaman is the best example, where they're saying, we're not trying to make it really a choice for you to do the hunt. What we're doing is we're not making you feel like the Paladin tree. We're letting you pick Darkness, which you're going to have almost every time. You're going to pick the hunt. And you're going to pick the capstone node for it. But you still have 7 points, and it's purely based on the scenario. With Vengeance, it's probably not. You probably spend a little more. You spend Blur. You grab Demonic Appetite. Okay, now your throughput is done, I believe, outside of potentially the Elysian Quick and Sigils shit. But now it's like you don't even necessarily need stuff down here. You could go up and grab, you know,
That's true.
Fellblade. You could go up here. You could grab Imprison. You can like this. These are the points where they want you to spend. This is the point where they don't actually want to make your tree entirely throughput. They want to actually give you the opportunity to make yourself more powerful. Like say you're not taking Imprison. Okay, well, where are you spending these 4 points? Again, kind of ridiculous. You have to spend 4 points to get to Imprison, but like, where are you putting this to make yourself more powerful? Do you need Sigil of Misery on a fight? No. Like, do you need
For
this
utility,
stuff? Yeah, for utility.
Well, this was a Vengeance tree.
Yeah. I'm saying more. I'm not literally asking. I'm just like rhetorically saying. That's like kind of what they're trying to do. So speaking of that, still speaking of Mythic Plus T1, where are you finishing up the rest of these 5 points?
I'm just gonna assume Elysian's in the tree and good, and we go Elysian Decree.
So
The
improved
improved
sigil,
of Misery, because
increased duration of sigils, and then quickened,
yeah.
leaving you 1 point of actual choice in this scenario.
You can take 1 point out of Demonic Appetite, and then we have the decisions we're making.
Okay.
And then if you need Sigil of Silence in a key, you take Sigil of Silence. And I think the getting fragments for Chaos Nova is actually a super strong thing for Vengeance specifically, assuming it works like that, because that's just effectively lay on hands whenever you press Chaos Nova in AoE. So I think that's where that goes always. But
Okay.
so I guess we're looking at maybe Sigil of Silence versus a better Darkness, or maybe a point up higher, potentially.
I
Or
feel like
purge if you need it.
I feel like in Mythic Plus, as opposed to rating, I feel like having a 5-minute darkness is actually like kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're not pressing an impactful darkness every 3 minutes in most keys.
Yeah.
Do you
I
really
agree.
want that Vengeful Retreat slow trait for like other things?
I mean, you just have to get to the
Is that
deeper part of the
required?
tree.
It isn't required. You could. Oh well, okay. It is one of the 8 points we're spending at the beginning. Or no. You could spend it, evade, but it would have to be something in these first 2 areas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's that weird point I was talking about where we kind of got caught with like a decision between 3-0 points, and that'll just end up being flavor based on who's spending the point, I think.
So I think you guys are going to gain a few points in your tree just by moving things around. I don't think the baseline idea of the capstone level of the tree or things here is bad. I just think there's pathing issues. So number 1, getting magic damage taken feels bad. Getting maximum health feels bad. Here's another one. Let's say you're a Vengeance DH or a Havoc Demon Hunter in Raid. Why do you have to select Chaos Nova to get your personal? It's the only thing, right? It's the only possible. There's so many fights where you do not press Chaos Nova. Like, why do you have to select this to get your personal and get throughput under it? That seems wrong. Like, I don't feel bad with this. Like, I think the point of this tree, like, there's a few points in this tree where they know you're selecting it, right? One of them is meta, one of them is demonic, one of them is darkness, hunt, and Elysian, and unnatural malice, and the other one is blur. The only one of those that is, there's only one of those things I just mentioned that is required in basically all content that you have to get something that isn't required to get it. And that's the problem. That I think they need to fix. So I think Blur's position and then the whole thing of the Desperate Instincts capstone node needs a lot of work. What are your all's opinions on Demon Muzzle? Current conduit, right?
It's a buffed version of the current conduit. The current conduit is only Sigil of Silence. This one's all sigils, right?
I believe it's just Sigil of Silence.
No, it is all sigils.
Oh, really? I swear. It says-
Yeah, that's why it says not yet implemented, because enemies deal 8% reduced magic damage, specifically not all damage, after being afflicted by one of your sigils. This I feel like has potential for Havoc and Raid, actually, if they're going to be using like DPS sigils at all, to where it could just be like a nice little passive DR as if you weren't tanky enough, to just, on the boss's massive AoE, you just have Sigil of Flame on them and then you're chilling, right? But the issue with that is you're getting a potential defensive by only going through a silent sigil that might be irrelevant to you. It's another pathing issue.
I think Demonic Appetite actually might make a better capstone trait than anything else, because that's also throughput, and so is the hunt.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing though. If you start making 2 capstone things that are offensive, the part of the capstone level tree that isn't offensive is going to be ignored. But I also think that it's a pathing thing in the bottom right as well, right? Because quickened sigils and extended sigils is something you would potentially want to buff all the sigils you have, but you have to go through a sigil you might not use to get it. Same thing as before, where you have to throw 2 points into a sigil you might not be using to get something that will affect a sigil you get in your spec tree. So I think that it's just a big ordering issue, but I don't think it's a lot of points to throw away. I also think you guys have more choice than you realize. You pointed out the whole like going down to quicken sigils thing. I think it's likely they actually fix that. That you have to.
You're also.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say you're going for quicken sigils for Elijah McCree in both specs, right? Like,
yeah.
So.
And when
why
you
not
do,
put Elijah McCree there?
exactly, yeah. And when you do, you have to like send down so many free points too. So yeah, putting Elijah Decree there and putting Demonic Appetite here is good. It's just like a total different philosophy on the capstone level. So they'd have to like relook at that. But I think you guys are going to gain a bunch of free choice points. Like I think something, and we have a lot of information on this because these developers collaborate a shit ton on all these trees, and they have been fundamentally fixing a bunch of things with the trees. 3-point nodes are getting removed day by day. They're from every single tree. And that's one. And then the other one is these kind of pathings where you have to get stuff you don't like to get to stuff that you need. That has been fixed routinely in every tree in the game, basically, over time. And some of them are still being gotten to, but like that has been fixed pretty routinely. So I feel like you guys are just straight up going to gain like 4 points on the left and right side of this tree and also gain the magic damage and max health. Just the only issue is that I feel like once you get those points back, though, it's going to become very evident in the class tree that you just need more meat. You need more stuff that you want to actually go get. I think that's what it's missing. Like, dude,
in my case, there's like things I want to go get that I had before. Like, for example, I don't need the kick giving fury thing, but like, I kind of want it back. I want the Vengeful Retreat slow back. I want magic DR back. Like all this different. Like, I want my imprison, but I have to go 4 points to get it.
Okay, thought experiment here. I'm going to imagine you're getting Quicken Sigil somewhere up in the tree. I'm just removing these 4 points. Let's just say you have the same stuff here you have in the bottom, just as he selected, for whatever spec. You now have 4 points that you want to spend. Are those, like, creative and interesting, even? Like, if you were to get those 4 points, are you really getting anything you really want? I guess you're just running it down mid with the throw glaive stuff for Havoc and grabbing, like, Disrupt for Fury, but, like, that's, again, just stuff you have, right? So it's not like you really feel like you're gaining any power.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably getting Purge if you need it. You're maybe getting the Darkness trait if you need it. If you find that, assuming this is like raid or whatever. And then you're probably just going for something that you lost but want again.
Okay.
And you only have 2 points to do that, so I mean...
Yeah, I don't look at everything I could spend 4 points on and see anything that I really care about.
Yeah, and this is in Mythic Plus too. So like, let's just kind of think about it from raid for a moment. So like, you're probably taking Sigil, taking Shattered Resolution, Charred Warblade. Stuff down here is extremely situational. I guess Max Fury, because why not? The point and Vengeful Retreat. The slow, very unlikely. Kick, almost certainly. Aura of Pain, sure. And then like everything here, you move on. And then I'm just gonna tell me where I'm wrong, just to like kind of speed this up. Pretty sure it's Rush of Chaos still. Always Infernal Armor. Always Soul Rending. Always Demonic. But then now what are you doing? Are you pathing down to the max health?
Yeah, you're getting max health.
Okay, so here's Raid Simulator. You don't need Chaos Nova and Sigil of Misery in 80% of raid encounters. So what's going on here? Like,
well, I mean, Fellblade might be good damage. I don't know. You have to spend on Chaos Nova for Blur, right? Like that's just
that's we've already addressed that as an issue. Okay, so sure, you send Chaos Nova, you get Fellblade, you have 1 point to move down. Could be situational, could be Purge. You're a mile away from Imprison. Again, very rarely used in raids. It could be Fury or Pain on kicks. It's kind of the point. It's a little weird. And then again, if you're a Legion Decree in raid, let's slam Sigil of Misery, because why not? Okay, you take Darkness, the Hunt, this. In a raid situation, you probably take 3-minute Darkness. You take Blur, you take 1 point Demonic Appetite. Again, unlikely to get the stun node. Now where are you going? You have 5 points, but none of them seem really relevant for raid. You slam Quicken Sigils, you now have 1 choice node. Doesn't seem that great, right?
Yeah, thinking about this from a raid perspective is actually, I don't feel like there's almost any choice whatsoever.
What do you think, Avade? Same shit?
I was just going to say put it in the Demonic Appetite.
Yeah, you just get another Demonic Appetite and that's it. Is there a single point you actually choose anything anywhere in this?
I mean, you could choose between max health and magic damage.
Magic damage.
Holy shit. Someone just had the most insane idea in chat. Insane as in like the power level would be absurd. They said make the Darkness choice node choose between 3-minute Darkness or like 40-yard range Darkness. Not like on the ground, just like an AoE Aura Mastery tile like effect. Holy fuck, that would be so broken.
Yeah,
that would be almost twice as good as current Aura Mastery in the game, and they nerfed Aura Mastery from that point that it used to be at. So yeah, that's high. That's way too good.
It should cover the ground too.
Yeah. Oh, it should be as dark. Dude, you should have seen it, man. You would have loved this. When we were trying to summon the DH trees the other day, I was like lining up a bunch of DHs on Alpha. We had like 40 of them, and we like all dropped Darkness at the same time.
I saw a video of that.
Yeah, it's pretty epic. Okay, so we're gonna move on to Havoc, but. You know, and I'm not going to like super go over everything we talked about with Vengeance because I think a lot of the similar issues are going to come up in Havoc. So, all right, Avade, slam me down. We'll start with Raid first and then Mythic Plus.
Sure. So double point in the Fury trait, Unrestrained Fury. Okay, so now you need to get to the Immolation Aura trait, so you just get your kick, and then you get that.
By the way, we haven't talked about this. I don't like that. So, again, most classes are like getting kicks baseline. But a few classes actually have scenarios where they don't have to select their kick, you know, on a fight where you don't need it and you can gain power in other areas. Demon Hunter is one of like 3 classes, I think, where it's on their tree, where it's actually not a choice and they basically make you path through it. And other classes have the ability to unselect it. I actually really like the ability to unselect it. There's content where you don't need it, and it could make you better.
I think. Is that even the kick?
Oh, never mind.
That's just the range increase,
I'm
right?
stupid. Yeah, I'm stupid. I got baited by the actual thing. It's just
I got baited.
It's just the range. But I mean, kind of the same argument, right? Like, why do you have to take ranged on your kick to get Aura of Pain? So kick is baseline, which is, again, it is a strange argument though, because like probably half the classes in the game have kicks baseline and half are on the tree, and then some are automatically pathed through it and some can select it. It just seems like the things are not aligned there, but not all classes are the same.
So how many points do you have left?
4 more to start the second tree.
Okay, so I mean, it's the question of whether or not you would find value in Sigil of Flame. Probably not. If I had to guess, probably not. But I mean, just take it.
Okay.
And then, I don't really know what to do because you would want the throw glaive traits if you're going to go down and get that one trait. But if you're talking raid, likely not going to. So I guess go get the mastery movement speed so that you can get the magic damage reduction.
Okay.
And what you still have to get 2 more points.
Yep.
I didn't have this. I'm pretty sure I took the Fury trait when I was first doing this, and then I didn't want it afterwards. I mean, I guess you have choice here. I guess just take the throw glaive, double charge, and then 1 more throw, so you get to the next thing. Get meta CDR, Fellblade, and then get the leech, so you can get the Chaos Nova. Take Chaos Nova because you're gonna want Blur and Demonic Appetite.
I hate that decision, but we've already talked about it.
Yeah, and then I went for Fellfire Haste, and then double Magic DR.
Okay, and then you have 3 more
Flame
points
won't
to
see
unlock the
anything.
bottom. The only stuff you're missing is like magic health, but we already talked about how much of a crazy investment that would be, so it's like kind of off the table. You're missing
So if you're
infernal
going-
armor, but that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's really bad. But if you're gonna go Elijah Decree, you might want the Quicken Sigils, in which case you would go double into Infernal and then go to
Oh,
that.
dude, if you want quicken sigils for Havoc, you are running it down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points for this talent. That is brutal. Oh my god.
I mean, Quicken Sigils can be pretty good too if you're taking Elijah Decree, but I don't know. Maybe it's not always needed, but even if you have extra points, I mean, I don't even want to spend them in a lot of things besides the throw glaive.
Well, are you taking Elijah Decree in single target?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Probably not. Anyway. Darkness, Blur, double Demonic Appetite, Hunt Dot, Enhancer.
And you
And
have 5 points. You said quicken sigils. Well,
Yeah,
let's say no quicken. Well, okay, no quick. Okay, let's do quicken sigils first, and then we'll talk about no quicken sigils after.
You take the damage one, not the CDR. Just, because
And-
you could put it down and then, press something.
Yeah. Also, it's
It doesn't break to Immolation Aura, so you could
Yeah, but it also is this additional 10% damage from you or from everyone?
It looks like it reads as everyone.
Yeah. So I mean, you could definitely have some kind of actually, it'd be kind of cool is if they get to make Misery and Defeat more relevant. Is have this be a debuff that just lasts on the target for like 5 to 10 seconds, even when Sigil of Misery dissipates. So Sigil of Misery can kind of turn into kind of
Well, now it's required if you do that.
But have it be on like non-bosses, so it'd be very similar to like how Kidney Shot works with that one talent on like ads
Prey on
in
the Weak.
P2 of Anduin. Yeah, Prey on the Weak, exactly. Where it would non-boss enemies take 10% additional damage, which is not like super overpowered. It's very niche, but it's like kind of powerful and would just add that ability to someone else in the game. But just randomly throwing things against the wall for something basically irrelevant. Okay, and then now you have 1 point. Who would have guessed? And then that goes to Better Darkness in
Better
raid.
Darkness, or I guess Demon Muzzle. Now that I've found out that it works on all sigils. And
But
not
even then,
just
that's a 2
spells.
point. That's a 2 point get, right? So you're kind of fucked.
I mean, you're kind of so like you can't ever get Will of the Illidari because you have to go through so much bad stuff to get it, unless you are unless they buff Sigil of Flame and Flames of Fury, then it would be easier to go to get that.
So this would be the next conversation is, let's say Elysian Decree is not what you're playing in like a raid build for whatever. So just remove everything at the bottom, remove the 2 points of Infernal Armor, and now you need 3 more points even to path down to the bottom. And what a line of thinking could be is you're getting the max health here later, so you would just go like...
You're going all the way down to the max health.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do that. You'd like probably take Throw Glaive and then Purge because it's the same points as Shattered Restoration, then Charred Blades, then again... Lost in the Darkness, potentially something irrelevant, just so you don't get 2 things here you don't want. Although in raids you could probably like play Precise Sigils and it not be terrible, but I mean like in a lot of scenarios it's just, I don't know.
Well, the other one's more
throughput to potentially, right? If you're so let's just
but then you're just unhappy because no, you have to like be in melee range.
Be in melee range, yeah. And then you slam max health, and then I still think you can get everything you wanted to get down here, but you're spending most of those points up at the top. Right. Do we have everything here in the bottom? We do. You actually have 1 point even remaining. So basically, you're choosing between slamming 7 irrelevant points for quicken sigils or 7 irrelevant points for one
for
of the
max health.
That is actually so rough. But okay, and then maybe you just
Probably Sigil of Silence because it might be useful sometimes.
yeah. So
Or
it's
the
a
Chaos
1
Nova
pointer to get
CDR.
misery or silence based on this scenario. Okay, yeah, that's kind of cursed.
Yeah. The traits, I mean, aside from what he brought up with Vengeance, how you can cast Nova with the Chaos Fragments trait at the far left, being a pretty good way to heal, those two traits are, like, not very powerful for Havoc. Unleash Power is a nerfed version of the Unleash Power, and Chaos Fragments just was a part of Chaos Nova and now is not. There's just a lot of utility that is in here that it was just part of the class and now it's not, and it's not super compelling to try and get it back.
Yeah, I
Except
think
for maybe a couple things.
I think the class tree needs work, for sure, for both specs. I think it has a lot of good ideas. Just pathing's actually not a minor issue. I think there's like some major pathing issues. But the issue with pathing is like a lot of other specs. It's like, oh, dude, they fixed the pathing, which they've routinely done, and it's like now the class tree is already going to be insane. You know it's going to be insane. But I don't feel that way with Havoc, because I feel like if they gave you the points back you get by having to go through irrelevant shit, you're not even putting into anything that's really that valuable.
Yeah.
So I would say that this tree needs major pathing work, and also needs just a little bit more stuff on here.
Yeah, they have to just come up with some like new stuff because I mean stuff like Lost in Darkness is just stuff like that. It's just not very interesting. Consume magic, like not the consume magic itself, but the actual
yeah,
getting fury when
2
you
points
do
and
it.
kicks up here. Okay, so that's gonna be the end of our time with T1, I think, because we're gonna go on to the Havoc spec tree. But T1, I'll have you back on again, assuming next week, hopefully not longer than that, to talk about the Vengeance spec tree from a Mythic Plus angle.
Sounds good.
All right, see you, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.
See ya.
Dude, you know how lucky that guy is on his Fury Warrior Evade? His character on live right now in Season 4 has a 311 Old Warrior Soul, Jathis, Gavel, and 2 other 311 items from Fated Mythic that he looted. He's actually...
He just RNG looted all that?
Yeah, he's actually... He didn't even spend his dinar. He's actually just cracked. Insane luck. Okay, so let's do... so the Havoc spec tree. So before we even get into the spec tree, as an exercise, a question before and after this. So just to set up a baseline before, the idea is I just want you to explain where Havoc has been as a DPS class in raids and in Mythic Plus throughout Shadowlands, and just kind of the spec as it is right now on live, kind of ignoring a lot of the Covenant stuff that's going away, like Simple Brand.
Design-wise, yeah?
Yeah, design-wise, and like what it's good at, what it's bad at, stuff like that. And then the reason why we're doing this is after we go through the spec tree and kind of assuming some changes that will probably be made, I want you to kind of talk about what the class will play like, what its strengths could potentially be, and what it will look like in Dragonflight, just purely based off the initial impression of the spec tree. So start with Shadowlands DH.
Okay. It's very broad, but Shadowlands Demon Hunter is like... it came off of BFA as kind of just being stripped of its power. You know, everything felt kind of worse. Blade Dancing on cooldown, you know, Demonic got nerfed. Like, the class just got like pretty much nerfed across the board, and you could feel it in the way that it played. It wasn't just its performance. I personally enjoyed, you know, momentum in Sanctum, Sanctum of Domination, and then from that point forward, it kind of just went downhill. You know, they just implemented the Sinful Brand build that removed rotational abilities, and you know, I wouldn't even say you're playing Demon Hunter when you're playing Sinful Brand Demon Hunter. You're just kind of like keeping up a dot and pressing your builder spender. Yeah, I mean, Demon Hunter in the past has been like this class that like always has damage, always has like AoE. It's always like really efficient AoE and single target. In Shadowlands, that's not always the case anymore because Blade Dance isn't a part of the rotation, and now that they put that in the tree, I mean, you're forced to take it now, so you kind of have that BFA niche again. And I know a lot of people really like BFA Demon Hunter, and BFA Demon Hunter was really powerful, just, you know, for one of the many reasons, that being one of them. This overall is like an improvement on Shadowlands Demon Hunter, like straight up. Like, that's my first impression of this tree.
Okay, we'll probably go through the tree and then like kind of talk about a lot of stuff and then kind of end with that. But that's the first thing I noticed in this tree too, is that I'm so glad that they're basically forcing you to take and press Blade Dance. I think Havoc as a spec, when it is designed to where basically in any scenario you don't press Blade Dance on cooldown, I feel like that's dog shit. That's just as bad as Windwalker's not really prioritizing Fist of Fury in the past or canceling it. It just seems like it's a button you hit off cooldown and it should be there, and it's just so bland when it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, so I agree with you in the sense that less specifically Blade Dance, but just a rotational ability. Because when you just have Chaos Strike, Demon Spite, Immolation, or an I-Beam, it feels very lacking. Once you add Blade Dance into it, it feels like now you have something to play around with, right? The reason I specifically don't mention Blade Dance is because Throglaive has also been that same spell before has in Blade Dance's place. So like I enjoyed Demon Hunter during the times that it had Blade Dance in the rotation, and when it didn't have Blade Dance but had Throglaive. So the way that I see it is that the class needs one of those two, or even both of those two abilities, to be part of the single target rotation to feel good to play. And that's actually one of my main complaints about the tree, is that yes, it gives you Blade Dance and that's super cool, but they kind of don't allow you to have Throglaive. And you really have to stretch for it if you want it, and it's mainly just in an AoE build. So personally, they brought back Bloodlet in a way by adding in Soulrend, but not for the purpose that people wanted. People probably wanted Bloodlet so that they could use Throglaive rotationally, and you can't. I mean, you'll rotationally use it in like mass AoE, but not on single target, which is the whole point, right? Like you always Blade Dance on AoE, even when Blade Dance isn't good on single target. That's not the point of why people want to be pressing Blade Dance. So I pretty much agree with you. I just don't think it's just Blade Dance. I think it's just like multiple rotational abilities.
I think if any class was like that, it would feel boring. Like imagine you play a little bit of BM Hunter, right? Or you have in the past, like you understand how the class works. Like just imagine a scenario where you don't press kill command, something that is resetting or happening rotationally, and you just Cobra shot, and then you just spend your focus on something that isn't like a filler. You're basically just spending a generator and a filler. That's what your rotation feels like.
Yeah, a perfect example actually is Windwalker. Take Windwalker and remove Rising Sun
Kick. Yep.
It's jab, blackout kick, Fist of Fury, Whirling Dragon Punch, I guess, now activates, and then that's it, right? Like you lose this like in between button.
Yeah, it'd be actually horrible.
I mean, that's the reality that Demon Hunter is playing right now in Shadowlands. You're just building, spending, pressing Immolation or an I-Beam, and that's it. So yeah, this is an improvement for sure, and I'm happy to see an improvement.
Great. So let's kind of start with... Oh, wait. Before we even start building the tree, there's a few buttons we definitely need to talk about. This is probably the one I'm the most passionate about, so Momentum. Momentum is a very controversial DH ability. It's at its best is this, thing where you actually have to, really optimize. Forget the fact that you have to use movement abilities for it. It's just very complicated, and you have to put up your buff. You have to generate and then put up your buff window and spend as much as you can during it, which requires precise gameplay and precise planning and all that stuff. It's one of a lot of like min-maxers like favorite specs to play in this game. However, there's a lot of people that want it to be easier. I feel like this version of Momentum, which they did clarify that Glide is intended, they're lost in the void between what this spell was, and by trying to make it more accessible, I feel like they should just make a new ability or completely redesign it. And I want to hear your take on this, because I feel like they're basically just making it a maintenance buff. They're making it Inquisition. They're making it Savage Roar. They're making it Slice and Dice with that isn't being extended by Envenom. And instead of you just actually pressing a button with combo points like those other classes do largely, you are spamming movement buttons and Glide to keep this damage buff on you permanently. And it just seems like, again, I'll wait until I can actually play with it working properly. Currently, it extends infinitely instead of, I think they said they wanted to change it to pandemicing with it working this way. It seems like the most unfun gameplay ever, and they're taking away a realistic choice for doing damage and basically making it be something you might take because it's powerful, but extremely not fun. Yeah, that's basically, that's my take.
I completely agree with pretty much everything you just said. I think that this version of Momentum, so like, just for a second, if we remove Glide from this Momentum, it's better, right? It's just kind of old Momentum, except it's longer and it's a lesser damage buff.
It's also way easier than old Momentum.
Well, if you remove glide, it's not. It's the same.
You think so? Even when you're adding vengeful retreat and the hunt?
Well, so the way the way that momentum worked in Legion, which is the best version of it, hands down, is Foul Rush and Vengeful Retreat activated momentum for 4 seconds, giving you 20% damage. If you take glide out of this, it's basically the same thing. It's just 6 seconds, 12% damage.
Yeah, so easier to maintain and to get your burst windows in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I would have wanted going into this expansion is I would have wanted them to add Vengeful Retreat into momentum to activate it alongside Fell Rush, and they did. It's just the problem that now that they put glide in there, it just it throws everything off balance, right? Like now you don't care about pressing those buttons. You're just going to spam spacebar, glide for it, which is an off global way of.
That's terrible. I'm imagining hitting a single target raid dummy right now and doing my whole rotation while gliding in circles around the boss.
It's a lot of inputs, which is like one of the things I don't like. Like if you want to do it, you have to jump always. So you have to spacebar, and then you have to press your glide bind or press spacebar again. So every 6 seconds, you're pressing like. Actually, if you jump, and you don't press a glide bind, you have to double jump. So you jump, you press spacebar 3 times every 6 seconds.
Or you can, I think you just bind it in that scenario, right?
Yeah, and now I'm gonna have to find a good glide bind.
Wait, you don't bind glide?
No, I have it bound. It's just on Shift X, which is not as comfortable. Like I'd want it on a rotational button like V or.
I've always just bound glide on like a mouse
binding
button.
glide is 100% something you should always do. It's OP.
Yeah, but so basically we're kind of in this. So you're saying you don't think momentum is your demon, because like people are saying just don't glide. Well, I mean like. You're just gonna glide in a lot of you're just gonna glide.
You're gonna only glide.
The
Vengeful and Flourish and Hunt are just like it's like some extra sauce on the side. It's like you're just gonna glide.
So I think they need to go back to the drawing board with this. I kind of explained my piece on it earlier, because I don't think momentum is like, okay, I actually ran a poll in my chat, and I understand my chat probably skews more towards higher level playing, but I still get a lot of people in my chat that complain about it. Basically, the poll was 3 options about momentum. Is momentum the reason you play DH? Meaning like you love momentum and that's why you play Demon Hunter. I actually would fall into this category. About 20% people agreed with that. And then the second option was, I don't necessarily love momentum, but I like that it's an option on Demon Hunter. I'll play it potentially if it's good, but I like that the fact that there is a much easier like I-Beam Blind Fury build. And then the third option is I hate momentum removed from the game. The hate momentum removed from the game was the lowest one. It was like 18%. The people who play because they love it was 20, and then 60% were the middle indifferent one, basically, which means like 80% were for it. So I don't think momentum should be gone for the game. I'm
surprised that would be the results. I would have expected more of like a 50-50.
Yeah, no, I mean not all polls are accurate. It was like only a couple thousand people voted, but like it was, and in my stream is going to skew the results probably because they know that I like momentum, so people will like agree with me and shit. Yeah. But I just feel like it needs to be somewhere, because you don't have to take it. Like I actually think, don't you think momentum was actually in a good spot in Shadowlands? Like it was like really good in Sanctum. I remember you guys like basically played it on most fights, but like before domination shards got fully upgraded, like they were really close, and like you could have actually played both, and one was just this insanely easy spec and the other one was actually quite challenging. And I think that's a good balance where you can have the choice to play both. And I don't understand why anyone would hate the fact that that balance is there like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're somebody who doesn't like momentum and it's slightly better, you're going to feel like you're losing out on damage. And then if you like momentum and it's slightly worse, then, you're like, man, I got to play this boring shit. And, I mean, I also fall into the category of just, I love momentum. I wish they'd make like a new spec or something that was just momentum based or something like that. I think it's super cool. I just don't think this version having glide in it is good. I don't think making it a maintenance buff is good. So that's basically all it is.
I think maintenance buffs in general in the game, I'm almost positive they're all bad. Like it's just weird design. Like if you take them all away from classes, the classes do not become less fun to play. Like Red Paladins did not like playing Inquisition. If rogues had to actually keep slice and dice up every 45 seconds, it would just make the class less fun to play. So like I don't know, I just think maintenance buffs in general are just like kind of an old thing in WoW. It's okay that it exists on a few classes, but it's definitely not something to add more of. I think they're very, very weak design abilities.
Yeah. I'm sure you can make them good, but you have to like it can't just be you just put up a buff, right? It would have to like
Yeah, no, very specifically, like someone in chat mentioned Shiv. Shiv is not what I'm talking about at all. Shiv is like a damage window button. That's a fucking insane button. Love Shiv. I'm talking about buttons you keep up that don't interact with your gameplay at all. They just make you like auto attack faster and shit, or just passively do more X physical damage or something, and you just keep them up infinitely. That shit's boring, man. But okay, moving on to kind of looking at other parts of the tree. Something they added, again, if we talked about momentum, I want to ask you about the other 3 end level capstone nodes, so I can kind of speak about them freely. We can probably start with Shattered Destiny. So duration of your active demon form is extended by 1 second per 50 fury. So what do you think that I think that has
5
awesome...
fury?
Yeah. Or no, well, I mean, yeah, 0.1 per 5 or 1 full second per 50.
Okay. Yeah, so like I said earlier, where the first thing I was looking for in the tree was more rotational abilities in the baseline rotation, the second thing I was looking for was something that kind of gives Demon Hunter a playstyle. Instead of just being this boring class that just builds, spends, press on cooldown, this actually gives it a playstyle, which I think is cool. Like entering Demonic and trying to get as many GCDs as you can to extend, thinking about like if I'm going to use a GCD that doesn't spend Fury here, but I'm going to fall out of my meta, maybe I would want to spend the Fury and then use that GCD or something. I think that that's really cool. The only thing I don't like about this is that it's super punishing for downtime. Anything that like extends cooldowns or is like cooldown reduction stuff in the game, like for any class.
It's like a microcosm of breath. And it's like
Yeah.
it's like the duality of those kind of mechanics where I think it's like breath is just one of the best design abilities in the game for like when you're in it, you're just having so much fun and it's like super high, fast paced and like, you're just doing a ton of damage and you're owning and you're pressing buttons all the time. But like the tremendous downsides of breath are downtime or the amount of damage the low amount of damage you do outside of it, or just how bad it can feel to get like bad RNG and just have it last less long. Now this is nowhere near what breath is, but it's like that same feeling exists where you're massively punished by not doing it well, or by being unable to hit the boss. I feel like it won't feel that bad though, because I mean, like how long is like your demonics actually going to get extended?
I'm pretty sure from when I was hitting the dummy, it like almost doubled or more.
Some people in chat are making up that it is 20-second demon forms most likely from demonic.
Yeah, that's pretty long.
And then also you have other things that make your demonic
That seems
better.
roughly correct.
Yeah. I feel like that's remember how in the middle they like gave you that choice node where you're kind of just going to be going down and always slamming it down mid, and then you're going to choose between the stuff on the left and right. I feel like that's very true with most specs of DH, where like not having with demonic, like not having improved meta in Shattered Destiny and AoE or single target's going to feel weird.
Yeah, improved metamorphosis. Mainly because demonic is so important on that side of the tree. You feel like the traits that kind of buff your meta are like required, whether it's single target or AoE. And in this case, I think 20% haste probably is pretty good for both of those things, which you're kind of allowed to get to end nodes as a demon hunter. Like I don't know if other trees can do that, but like I have this build, for example, that just ends in momentum and Shattered Destiny, and it just avoids the AoE side of the tree like entirely.
Yeah, I feel like they're running into a potential issue, though, where maybe the gameplay is actually you're just permanently in meta form. And maybe that's okay initially, because, like, Cycle of Hatred combining with this, right? Where
Yeah. Well, I guess in that case, you are pretty much permanently in meta.
Yeah, but I think Cycle of Hatred is actually a nice button to add to Shattered Destiny, because it, in the scenario where you have downtime or something goes wrong, or you like lag out or something and you lose your demon form, you're at least getting it up a little bit faster to where you don't feel out of it. Like maybe one thing that would help breath be a better ability in this game is, like a choice node passive that just makes Frost Strike reduce the cooldown of your breath by like 2 seconds every time you press it or something.
Yeah.
Like
again, the only problem with that as well is downtime as well. Like which doesn't exist that much in WoW, but Demon Hunter doesn't really have to fight for staying on the boss very much, but it's just like any mechanic that has you run away and like have to do a mechanic. Stuff like Cycle of Hatred and, both of them, it pretty much kind of sucks a little bit. Also, yeah, and now that I'm like realizing it, Cycle of Hatred into Shattered Destiny is just literally 100% meta uptime.
You think that's good?
No, I don't.
To me, that sounds. I mean, they're exemplifying what demon hunters have been for a long time, which is the class that's just always doing damage. But I mean, even then, like, what does your meta cooldown even do in that scenario? Like, what's the point of? Yeah.
So the cool part about demonic, and what I think makes demonic cool, is that you're playing your class, and then boom, you get to go into demon form for the short period of time and do damage. If you are now always in meta, now it gets rid of the purpose of it, right? Like you're basically your class. You just look like a demon, and you're doing more damage, and you have more haste. I don't think being in meta all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you. It sounds bad. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if the answer to that is to make demonic not 100%, but just more than it is now, but make the trade-off being making demonic more powerful. So when you're in meta form, it's just more powerful than currently, I guess, but it'll be higher uptime, so it won't feel like you're losing that class fantasy of doing damage all the time. Yep. The third capstone node, we'll kind of path through that and talk about that later. Mastery now affects all your single school magic damage, so fire damage or bleeds, right? Is now all scaling off of your mastery.
I really like this talent. I think it's really cool. It branches from the AoE side of the tree, and it also, like, the abilities that this affects mainly is Immolation Aura, Thoroughglaive, Blade Dance. I might be missing something. I guess it also affects the Hunt. Let me see if that actually does chaos damage. No, it's nature. So it's making your AoE abilities that don't do chaos damage now do chaos damage. So this is basically a, I have right now 21% mastery on the alpha. So there's like maybe a 21% damage buff to those spells. So I mean, that's pretty big.
So the thing is it's not necessarily during all of AoE either. I think this has like single target integrations, but you kind of have to like slam like stuff you really only want in AoE scenarios to get it.
That is true, yeah. I mean, I assume it would also affect your magic, or sorry, your auto attacks.
Yeah, so what I would think is that I would rather, yeah, like it'll affect Flame Sigil, Hunt, Elysian Decree, all that stuff. But then, like, I wonder if I wonder if a pathing change to this tree would be as simple as having Burning Wound go down into momentum and having.
So Burning Wound needs to be removed from the game.
Oh, okay, sure. We can talk about that in a second. I just mean more of like pathing. Like, I feel like Elysian Decree, this choice node, should lead down into any means necessary as well. So even in a single target build, if you're taking Inner Demon or whatever, just on the side of the tree, it's only like 2 points to get the mastery node, where I feel like right now it's just permanently reserved for AoE, where you would potentially want, like, I feel like momentum and any means necessary are just a little bit out of the way. I'll give you some room to talk about Burning Wound though.
100% pathing issues here, like just being able to branch off even just from maybe Inner Demon to Fell Bombardment, like, is a huge, well, maybe not a huge gain.
Would Burning Wound work would it with Demon Blades? Is this just up all the time?
Yes, so the problem with Burning Wound in Shadowlands is that you multi-dot your auto attacks.
Oh, that's
which
dog
is
shit.
Really fucking bad. And then Demon Blades in Shadowlands has a 60% chance to actually work. So when you're multi-dotting your auto attacks, you have a 60% chance for it to actually work. So you have to sit there and RNG it.
They did change that, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's a really good change that they changed Demon Blades. That's no longer an issue. I just really don't like multi-dotting my auto attacks. I really don't want that in the game, ever. I think it's cool that there is something like this. I just don't think your auto attacks applying it.
It's the closest thing in the game to Mark of the Crane, but it's it's not. It just doesn't really work. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't need to be Demon's Bite. If it could be. Obviously, you'd have to tune it, but
Chaos Strike,
Blade Dance, applying it to maybe 3 targets or something, just anything but
Thoroughglaive
auto attacks or your generator. Yeah, Thoroughglaive, sure, that could work. I mean, it could be anything like that.
One major issue I have with this tree that maybe we'll see when we actually start pathing it is Netherwalk and Fell Eruption both feel really inaccessible. They are literally accessible because they're just 1 point away from something, but each one of them feels like a noticeable throughput loss in any build to actually select them. This is the second tree, I believe, in the entire game that has this issue. It's actually rare. I think Shadow Priest is the only other class that just doesn't take Dispersion because they're losing noticeable throughput to actually consider it.
So are you saying that there's less utility traits in this tree?
Not less utility, just that it's not in a certain part of the tree where it's actually like a realistic choice. So, like, for example, what they could do is like move some things around and put it up into like the top of the tree, and it's like something you path through. Like, for example, you could have more Blade Dance stuff on the left side of this tree here, but to get to the like stuff you're gonna get for Blade Dance, you're just basically just give you Netherwalk, because like you're never gonna actually select this over damage unless you have to.
Just swap Critical Chaos and Netherwalk technically, and then you're.
Yeah,
forced, quote unquote, to get it.
exactly. I mean, there's many ways to force you to get it. It's just that like there's so many good points on this tree and not enough points to go around, really. So it just feels like you never have access to it, and
Yeah.
you're forced into two decisions. You either don't take Netherwalk and you are worse at a fight than you would be currently with like the current talent system. Because in the current talent system, you're choosing between Netherwalk and like passive defensiveness, right? And in this tree, you're choosing between Netherwalk and doing a shitload of more damage, and that's bad.
Yes. Yeah.
And-
I really like the current Shadowlands like Netherwalk row. You know, because it's all utility versus utility versus utility. It's not utility versus damage. So yeah, I mean, this being having to essentially what you're going to do is once you fill out this tree is you look and you say, okay, what's the smallest damage gain I get, and it's probably going to be something that like gives you fury. And then you're just going to take that out, feel bad, and then take Netherwalk.
Yep. Yeah, that's the other decision. The decision is you do take Netherwalk because you need it or want it, and then you feel bad because you're losing something important. And people in chat are like, well, you know, sometimes you have to make that decision. Well, not everyone does.
It's not a fun decision.
It's not a fun decision, and they've fundamentally removed those decisions from all the classes that have had them so far. So clearly Blizzard identifies that that is obviously bad. Like, you don't want to be a class that has to make that decision and just not have your personal or one of your personals when other classes do not have to make that decision. They get it naturally, or their decisions are so the whole point of the iteration on the class design section, again, they haven't done the tuning yet, or they're just starting to. The whole iteration on or feedback for class design part of this is pointing out to them things that feel bad. You do not want anything on the talent tree to feel bad. They have done a good job on a lot of them to take a lot of that stuff out. So yeah, they're always working on it.
I mean, in BFA, Windwalkers had a Touch of Karma damage buff on the same tree as Ring of Peace, I believe. And they fixed that. They ended up making it just heal you instead of giving it a longer duration, which I think gave it more damage. So they're aware, you know, they kind of agree that, you know, okay.
Oh, dude, I mean, I could, if I'm not going to like take everyone's time for this. I could spend an hour right now and point out probably close to 20 or 30 changes that have happened across all of the 13 classes so far that have been fixing the exact problem we were talking about. Like, they identify that it's an issue. It's not an argument.
Well, I meant, is that in the current tree? The Dragonflight tree as well? So I was actually talking about BFA.
No, those changes that I was just referring to are changes they have made to class trees so far in Dragonflight since they've been released.
Oh, that's good then.
Yeah, it's fundamentally something they don't want. Okay, so let's start this. Let's talk Skull-X, Guardian, Sludge Fist, pure single target, Havoc Demon Hunter.
Okay. Let me do it with you. I need to unselect these points. And
no,
it bugs.
It's definitely, I get a much, being prepared is good, but doing it with me and having you, again, stopping at 8 and stopping at 20 where it makes sense is very important to discuss actual decision making.
Okay, so I-Beam, obviously. Dancing with Fate, First Blood. And then you go for Trail of Ruin because you want improved Chaos Strike.
Okay.
Giga. Critical Chaos, 2 points.
First of all, love that this is back. How do you feel about this?
It's not the same Critical Chaos, but I think it's cool that they're... I actually love that they're tying stats that aren't just haste into damage increases for Havoc, because, I mean, you only go haste because every other stat doesn't do anything, so having crit be kind of like your now main stat, I fucking love it. I think that they incorporated it in a really good way, because the problem with Chaos Strike in Legion was that it was very feast or famine. You either crit or you didn't, and if you didn't crit, you really, you know, it was really bad, and then if you crit a lot, you know, you're just going ham. With Chaos Strike only gaining more resets based off your crit, it still allows it to be averaged out, because current Chaos Strike either hit can crit, so there's like, it smooths out the variance, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So you have one more point. I don't know how much immolation or damage is going to be a factor. I assume it probably will be a huge factor, because I think Burning Wound is really good damage. So probably a point in Fellfire Heart.
I still feel like it's bad though, because like, so is that how often it ticks? Does it actually just give you an extra tick of ammo aura?
Yes, it ticks every 1 second.
Okay, so just one extra tick of ammo. Okay.
So currently I'm reading it. I guess I can't really see Immolation Aura's base duration, but hovering over the tooltip it says 16 seconds, so this will make it 18 seconds.
And it also has like Growing Inferno synergy. I don't know if we're going to be taking that, but we'll kind of talk about that later.
You kind of want Demon Blades, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so which is the first pathing issue in my opinion of Havoc, is that to get Demon Blades, something that is very core to the class. They give you Demon's Bite passive in Dragonflight, so they give you something that buffs Demon's Bite or makes you choose Demon's Blade. Functionally picking between whether you're using Demon's Bite or Demon's Blade, or Demon Blades, sorry. And this is on like the right AoE focused kind of side of the tree, and it's not like a very fundamental early choice. I feel like this should be like right under I-Beam. Like you should be making this selection immediately, and it should not be hidden behind this.
Something else that I personally have an issue with is that, you know, Fellblade is cool, but Fellblade plus Demon Blades is cool. Fellblade plus Demon's Bite is not cool, and I don't think anybody really ever plays Fellblade plus Demon's Bite. So to me, it seems odd that you can exist in a world where you have Fellblade and Demon's Bite. I think Fellblade and Demon Blades together are a really good combo, and I think just not Fellblade and Demon Blades and just Demon's Bite on its own is perfectly fine.
I feel like what a lot of people do is they just bind Fellblade to their Demon's Bite bind.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever really seriously played Fellblade and a Demon's Bite in anything, and even when I did, it feels awful, man.
I'm not going to speak for Blizzard, but I would imagine that Demon's Bite versus Demon Blades, I think Demon Blades is their intent on an optimal playstyle, and Demon's Bite is available for people who want to use that or have it be easier. I think there was more of a conversation about that last expansion, because like you're basically getting Fellblade for free in the class tree, right? Like you don't even have to think about that. So like last expansion with Demon Blades being much worse designed with like the RNG element of it. Now they've smoothed out the Fury and buffed the consistency to where it's just going to feel a lot better to play it. I feel like it's 100% the better play style for Havoc. And I think you're going to take it all the time. I just wish they would put it somewhere else in the tree.
Yeah,
sure.
I agree. I really like Demon Blades. I actually am fine with either playstyle. I know a lot of people are really torn. They're like, oh, I hate Demon's Bite or I love it, or I for the other one the same. But
I think a lot of people hatred for Demon Blades has to do with the RNG of it, though. I think that'll fix a lot of that.
For sure. Yeah.
The points in the top. You said you want to take Felfire Heart because, like, you know, potential Growing Inferno, Synergy, Burning Wind, whatever.
Well, it's because I want to get to Demon Blades.
Exactly. But in the scenario where Demon Blades is potentially moved, I just want to talk about the other potential choices in the top of the tree. So let's just say you take the point out of that. The issue is the stuff on the right, Burning Hatred and Tactical Retreat, are both just Fury Generation, that of which currently you have 1 million of. So both of them don't feel great. However, with like tuning of Fury Generation, these could feel a lot better, even in a
I wouldn't actually say that. So I would say Tactical Retreat is probably one of the biggest Fury generators that you have. I think losing it would no longer put you in that tier of like insane Fury Generation.
Okay.
I would say I don't have the numbers or anything, but just from playing it for a bit. Tactical Retreat versus Burning Hatred. I mean, man, Burning Hatred is just worse than Tactical Retreat. It's off global. It's a shorter cooldown because I believe Immolation R is still base 30. Same amount of Fury, and it's over a shorter period of time. And you have to go through Hot Feet to get it, which you don't want to go to Hot Feet, which is a huge problem. I can mention in a bit, but
okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think Tactical Retreat is one of those traits that you told me to go 8 down and then keep going. I probably would get that later. If I had
sure. That's great. I just kind of wanted to go through the nodes a little bit and just talk about them before doing that. So this is something interesting. Let's talk about Hot Feet. So this is a node that you're kind of, it's just basically, it's the same thing in a way as Netherwalk and Fell Eruption, where it's kind of just like a utility, nice quality of life extra thing of Fell Rush.
No, they removed a charge of Fell Rush, so you only have one. So
yeah, I know.
I feel like it feels giga bad.
No, same. That's my whole take.
Like, I'd throw away Netherwalk and Fell Eruption for 2 charges of Fell Rush any day. Like, this feels horrible. Have to choose because you have so many options on the tree.
And then they put Fell Rush damage under it, which is so weird because it seems like that only really interacts with having Unbound Chaos way farther down the tree. And that those two things being that spread out just seems weird. And just this, you know what this feels like? It feels like this. Have you seen
reminds me of the Harpoon thing.
The Harpoon survival thing. What about Monk, where Monk at the beginning of their tree has to take Soothing Mist as Brewmaster and Windwalker, which you will never use to get a second charge of roll.
Right? Really?
Yeah, like it's an equally bad, very similar thought process thing that I hate that. I think this should just be baseline. The whole
it should just be baseline.
Like Demon Hunters not having 2 charges of Fell Rush is just weird. And I don't.
Nobody ever wants to play with one.
People are gonna mention that like you'd use this for momentum. I really don't even think you would. The fact that you have Glide means that like I think this is more just like this is a movement thing. But the fact that you're ever losing it in the first place is bad.
Yeah. So if momentum didn't have glide in it, now it's more useful.
Now it's damage. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, think about it this way, right? Would anybody want to play with only one charge of Bell Rush? I think the answer is probably no, which is probably why they put it so close to the top. They're like, okay, then just take it. We're all about efficiency here. We're gonna try and get as many damage traits as we can that are actually gonna affect our rotation or affect our damage, and then we'll go for stuff like this afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we are now at 8 points. I do not have the point in Tactical Retreat yet, and I have 1 point in Fellfire Heart to continue moving. So I'm assuming you are slamming Fellfire Heart here to get to Demon's Blades or Demon Blades.
Yeah. Okay, so Furious Gaze, I'm pretty sure is really good. Hard to tell if looks can kill would be good. Depends on how much crit matters for you. If crit's going to be like a Giga Staff for you, maybe it's not as cool, but it would probably still be good for AoE. I'll just skip it for now.
I want to talk about it for a second, though. I feel like the only reason they could have possibly put this in is because something that guaranteed crits when you are a crit class feels like kind of a waste. So maybe that's the thought process they used for separating the I-Beam dealing guaranteed crits as an actual talent point other than just spreading out the tree. But it still just feels strange. Like, they're making you a crit class with critical chaos in most scenarios. They're giving you a weaker version of First Strike. So maybe they're just like, okay, maybe you don't need this, or later in the expansion or something you don't need this, or it has less value than another point. I just think separating it, I understand the thought process behind doing it. I would just rather see it incorporated.
I think it was just for the sake of having it, if I had to guess. I mean, I-Beam got crit added onto it in Legion because crit was so important for Chaos Strike that they wanted to kind of like counteract how good crit was and be like, okay, well, we can't make crit good for everything, so let's just at least make this crit. And also, it's kind of cool when I-Beam crits, so...
Here we go. Where are we going from here? We have I-Beam. You said you want to hold off on looks can kill for now?
Yeah, just hold off on it for now. Serrated Glaive is gross. So when I read this, I thought it was an infinite duration. If you throw Glaive on a target...
What's the duration?
It's supposed to be... It was 10 in Shadowlands, and if you throw Glaive on on Alpha, it's 10. If it actually were to be permanent, it would actually have value, I think, because... it would just be boring 10% I-Beam damage for throw glaving if it was permanent, and I think it would be competitive. But without it being permanent, having to spend a GCD every 30 seconds, I don't know. It's not super compelling.
It's not a
gameplay.
GCD you'd have to think about if you were playing Bloodlet, but it is when you're not playing Bloodlet, it just seems strange.
That is true. Part of the AoE build, this would all just be automatic. I just think it's in a weird spot. It kind of like sticks itself out in the single target tree and kind of gets in the way.
Okay, I need to bring something up because chat's still... Somehow I explained something wrong and they're very confused. Guys, I said it's a weaker version of First Strike in the amount of crit you get. Not that this is weaker than having First Strike. I understand being able to reset it makes it more powerful overall than First Strike. We were specifically referring to this having less power because it guarantees crits when you are a crit class and you are getting less total crit chance than First Strike. That's the only... It's the only thing.
The more powerful you get, the worse looks can kill.
Yes, my point was not wrong. I must have misspoke or something to make you all this lost. All good.
So I would probably go for initiative. Your vengeful retreat. We're likely taking tactical retreat later on, and so you're gonna be using vengeful on cooldown. I think this is a pretty cool.
Wait, where do you want me to go? Sorry.
Just take initiative.
I love this, by the way. I fucking love this. I
think it's really cool.
I think this is one of the best of them adding something back into the game that was... They've done this a few times with Soulbind and Soulbind traits. This is one of the... Actually, they removed them. I think they gave like Dauntless Duelist or something to Warriors and they removed it. But like this is not only giving a class First Strike, which is something really fun to play around, but making it even better. Which is so cool. This is actually my favorite part of the whole tree, is that they did this.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention actually is that with tactical retreat, they removed the fact that you have to hit the enemy with vengeful retreat in order to get the effect, which I think is really good. Having to hit something with vengeful retreat feels really awkward. You have to like get in melee of it and then press vengeful retreat, go away, and then come back to it. The fact that they removed that is really good. And then that also is the same with initiative. You don't have to hit the mobs with vengeful retreat to refresh the effect. You just have to use it. So you can use it for mobility or anything. You don't have to run in melee and then backflip away and then come try and get your way back. But yeah, this is First Strike's really cool. It synergizes really well with Unbound Chaos, which is kind of on the other side. But
yeah, so we'll talk about that.
You can do it multiple times. Anyway, you would go to Chaos Theory next, I think.
Love that this is here.
It's not. This is kind of boring. It's just one Chaos Strike, and it just makes it do more crit chance. I think this would be cooler if it was like, hey, it auto crits and then like automatically refunds Fury, because it's only affecting one Chaos Strike. You can kind of like, if you didn't have damage numbers showing, you wouldn't feel the impact of this talent. You know, it's just my Chaos Strike can maybe crit, and maybe it doesn't, and it's just one, and you have to take 2 points into it, which I think you will end up taking 2 points into it. Unsure, obviously, but trying to use my best judgment.
I think the reason they put this in is this is like the final failsafe of all of these Blade Dance talents up here, from just saying you will press Blade Dance on cooldown because you want Chaos Strike to have a higher chance to crit with critical chaos existing. So basically this existing in a single target scenario and selecting it, you could argue the like 2 points versus 1 point thing, and maybe that's, you would rather have 1 point if it wasn't a pathing issue to have like less total crit, because you might have a lot more crit later in the expansion. But like, I feel like this basically means you are always going to be Blade Dancing in all scenarios, and I think that's insane.
Yeah,
that's good.
I just think it could be cooler. That's it. Relentless, I think you take. So Isolated Prey, you know, obviously the problem is, number one, you would want double Foul Rush if you wanted more Fury. You already have a lot of Fury, so this is mainly just like a 30% I-Beam damage. I don't know how much damage I-Beam is going to be total of your damage. If it actually is pretty good, then maybe you would take it. If it's the same as it is, well, okay, not in currently in Sepulchre or whatever, I-Beam is a lot of your damage because you play like an I-Beam CDR thing, but basically, if I-Beam is going to be a large portion of your damage, this is going to be pretty valuable, and I think you would probably take it. So I think maybe put a point into it for now.
Okay.
And then, so
I don't know how I feel about the Fel Rush generating that much. That's a lot of Fury. Like, I feel like that would just make your rotation feel weird, even if you're pressing it in an extreme scenario. I don't know.
So Fel Rush generating Fury is really cool, because
That could be more cool in old momentum.
Yes.
Old momentum, it would be way cooler, but like current momentum, it just feels like it's just going to be a lot.
It would actually feel perfect. It's just like you're going into a momentum window and you just fueled it by Fel Rushing, and it would just feel really, really good. Unfortunately, it's one target, which I think is really weird. There's also bugs with Fel Rush where it like doesn't actually hit targets if you're like jumping and strafing and stuff. So actually requiring you to hit the target in order to get the Fury, because it requires only one target, is a little awkward. I think it would be cooler if it was just like, hey, Fel Rush just now generates Fury, even if you miss it.
I think it's very clearly targeted to be the opposite side of the tree of something very AoE focused, and it's just something where they're like, okay, in a pure single target scenario, you just get X% stronger. I think that's the only reason it exists, is because it hits one target.
Yeah. So I want to get Growing Inferno because, like I said, I think Immolation Art is going to be a lot of damage. So 2 in Blind Fury and then 1 in Growing Inferno. And then that 1 point can either go into Looks Can Kill or Tactical Retreat, or you can take the point out of Isolated
Sorry,
Prey.
You said you'd wanted to go Blind Fury?
Yeah, double Blind Fury and then Growing Inferno. Sorry, I'm like going fast.
Wait, you don't want Chaotic Transformation?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
I personally don't think it's going to be very good because meta is 4 minutes. And you can get to every other trait without taking it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because there's a lot of good options, basically. So take the point out of Isolated Prey and probably put into Tactical Retreat and Looks Can Kill for now, I guess.
Okay, let me find that.
It's the I-Beam Guarantee crit.
Oh, yeah, I've got it. So I want to talk about how this will interact with Know Your Enemy in a second, because this is something that is also, I think, very interesting and certainly just doubles and triples down on the crit chance thing. But I want to talk about how that's actually going to work, because Know Your Enemy gives you increased critical strike damage equal to your critical strike chance, but that's the critical strike chance on your character, right? Does that interact with... That shouldn't interact with I-Beam doing guaranteed crits, right? It would just do bonus damage based on your actual crit, because it's not going to go off of the crit chance of the singular ability.
My understanding is that it would work if you had 30% crit, your I-Beam would do 30% more damage. Perhaps.
Yeah. But I think it'll 100% scale with this, because this is actually increasing your critical strike chance. So initiative. Initiative works with this, making like really strong interaction. That was a really cool thing I saw the other day. And then specifically, Chaos Theory also doesn't, right? Because it's giving a specific button extra crit chance. So it's kind of weird in between all of those things.
I am taking Know Your Enemy though, because it does seem like a pretty good damage increase, and you have to.
I mean, if you're stacking crit, I mean, it's just like, just a no-brainer, right? It's insane.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that as well. I also, just to reiterate before, I really like the idea of the of crit synergy. So something you skipped over and I want to talk about is Essence
Sure.
Break. You've played Essence Break specifically with Momentum a bit this expansion, where you're basically just using this to line up with your burn windows during a Momentum, like you're dumping all of your resources. I have never had fun playing this ability. Do you agree with that, or do you like this?
I don't like it because it only affects 2 abilities, and it's just Chaos Strike and Blade Dance. I think if it obviously I'm not saying to give Demon Hunter Colossus Smash or anything, but if it affected more than just this, I think it would be cooler. I also think Essence Break would be cooler if it was maybe just another button that just did damage. I'm not a fan of Essence Break personally. Essence Break is actually the reason that Demon Hunter was so powerful in Sanctum, and and then Momentum synergized really well with it, but Demonic didn't synergize with it. But if you actually look, Cycle of Hatred, roughly I would say makes meta or Demonic 20-second cooldown, so now Demonic will synergize with Essence Break. So it could be good, it just feels bad to press that global in your Demonic window.
Oh yeah.
I'm unsure if Essence Break is going to be a good option.
That was my takeaway from looking at these trees, is I thought Essence Break being in the capstone level didn't feel right. And then even then on the single target side of the tree, which is clearly what it's like aimed at, I just feel like there has to be a better option. I found it, I ignored it in all of the builds that I made, and that's not even due to power level. It's also just due to it just doesn't even sound fun to use, even if it was good.
I mean, that's kind of also why I ignored it, is because I was just like, well, I don't particularly want Isolated Prey, and then I don't particularly like Essence Break that much. They also made it worse. They made it 6 seconds instead of 8.
You have 7 points left on this tree to kind of get whatever you want. You have a decent amount of options here. Seems like you've unlocked.
I have 7? I thought I had 9.
I did the 2 Cycle of Hatred points.
Oh, okay,
without asking you. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah, sorry. And then I think Cycle of Hatred is really cool. They made it less variants than the current Shadowlands version. The current Shadowlands is just like Feast or Famine, kind of like old Chaos Strike. This kind of reduces it to be, on average, you're expected to get not super high peaks and valleys or whatever.
Yeah.
Again, the uptime thing, whatever. But next one is Momentum. I think since you're gonna have 100% uptime on 12% damage, it's probably
like the power levels too good. We're not gonna go into the thing again. We had a full ass 10-minute conversation about this spell, but both if you guys weren't here for it, both of us heavily dislike the direction that Momentum is going. But it's not without being able to be redeemed. Literally Glide alone would make this so much less ass being removed if Glide was off of it.
It would just be like old Momentum, just a little bit different, a little longer.
Yeah.
So the next trade I'd go for is Burning Wound. I already went over how I really don't like that, but I think with Growing Inferno, with Fell, Fire, Heart, and then with Burning Wound, you're just putting so much... Oh, and then also you have Aura of Pain on the class tree. Your Immolation Aura is just going to hit really fucking hard. That's what I think.
Yeah.
And then that's free AoE as well, which is really cool. Oh, I mean, I guess Burning Wind isn't free, but the other ones are.
Yeah.
But then obviously you have the issue of multi-down your auto attacks, which is a huge issue that I really don't like. And then I have 5 points left, so I think what I went is I went Inner Demon, and then a double improved meta, and then Shattered Destiny to.
And you have 1 more point.
Yeah. So technically I have more than 1 point because I could remove Tactical Retreat at the top, but to eliminate options, essentially, I don't want to go on the AoE side. I don't want Fell Bombardment, for example. I suspect that there's a lot of different damage options that you have here. You could go Fodder to the Flame, which I'll explain why I don't like Fodder in a sec, but you could go Fodder or maybe the second Fellers Charge if you really wanted, or Netherwalk if you really wanted, but in terms of damage, you'd probably want maybe Chaotic, maybe Isolated. There's a lot of damage options, essentially. I guess I'll just talk really quick about Restless Hunter. It's just worse than Inner Demon. Leaving Demon form grants you a charge of Fell Rush, which doesn't really matter
unless you're
AoEing.
Yep.
Even if you're AoEing,
you still have the Fell Rush for this at all times, so it doesn't.
You'll always have one.
It's more of like a quality of life thing, I think, for movement. That's the only reason it exists.
Sure, and then it just makes your Blade Dance do more damage. But the problem is that when you're in meta, your Blade Dance does roughly 75% more damage. That's kind of the modifier it puts on it. So what this is saying is when you leave meta, your next Blade Dance will barely do as much as the Death Sweep would have done.
And also you're playing a build that extends your meta, which means...
Yeah, so you're not leaving it that often.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really weird. If Inner Demon works off of I-Beam instead of just simply entering Demon form, it'd be cool. That's just free AoE damage. tied to your single target spell, which I think is really good. I really liked Inner Demon in Legion. This is slightly different, but if you can only activate it once entering demon form, playing the playstyle of Shattered Destiny kind of weakens that trait, which is very weird because you kind of use it to get there anyway, right? Like you're using Restless Hunter and Inner Demon to get to Shattered Destiny, but both of Inner Demon and Restless Hunter don't synergize well with
yes, that's the exact point that I came to the other day, is that neither of these two at the bottom feel normal. That's fine, but these two, everything that passed with it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, honestly, I'd have to like look at Sims to really know like the best optimal choice at this point. And frankly, I'm not sure if this would be this whole tree is like the best optimal choice, but it seems to be the best.
Yeah, and then now you still have that extra point to talk about, or potentially two. So you said you wanted to talk about Fodder to the Flame.
Yeah, so Fodder to the Flame, my opinion of it is that I don't like the ability, but the reason I don't like the ability is because there's a demon NPC in between you and the effect. Having this NPC spawn and run around the battlefield and having to wait for it to get to you to get your soul, or like, you know, on Sire Denathrius, if you spawned a demon and then went through the portal, you would think that the demon might teleport to you, or maybe it would just run across the entire room, but it actually just gets bugged and stuck and doesn't move. There's a lot of like problems with spawning an NPC in dungeons and raids, and I think it's really awkward. I think that there's an easy solution to fix this. I think making it so that instead of it proccing a demon NPC that runs at you, it just maybe procs a debuff on your target, that when you throw glaive your target, it pops the damage, pops the healing, gives you a demon soul. I think that would be way more intuitive, make more sense, cut out the middleman or the middle demon guy that just is really kind of weird and awkward. I don't know how other people feel about Fodder to the Flame. I mean, it's powerful, but that doesn't really necessarily mean that it's...
Well, I think when they initially implemented it, I think they were trying to solve a problem that you brought up earlier as being one of the main issues with DH, is that you don't have a functional rotational ability. And I think what Fodder to the Flame did when they designed it for Necrolord was they did make you just use Throw Glaive. And that might have been like the actual purpose of that existing. And you're saying that that is actually a good part of Fodder to the Flame. Even in single target, you're going to be using Throw Glaive rotationally, and it leads to you doing more damage after you press it. It's just the way that it does it is way too class fantasy Necrolord kind of shit, and more like, you know, you can accomplish that without it being as annoying to use.
For sure. You only use Throw Glaive roughly every 45 seconds because that's around the proc chance or proc rate of this. So it's not like super
unless you're bloodletting, obviously. But very, very unlikely, I think, you're ever bloodletting in single target. Or soul rending, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think you would.
I wonder if you would if you didn't have to already also go through Fell Bombardment, but I understand why they're connected.
So Throw Glaive, you know, design-wise, it's hard to say. Sorry, it's easier to say, but tuning-wise, it's hard to say because Throw Glaive really does very little damage. So, like, Soul Rend buffing that damage by 120% isn't quite enough to make Throw Glaive insane. It would be good in AoE, 100%, but, like, I'm pretty sure even if Soul Rend, you could just take it for single target, I don't know how good it would be because Throw Glaive just does so bad damage. Like, we're just looking at tooltips right now. Throw Glaive deals 2.1k roughly, and Chaos Strike does 6.5k. Obviously Chaos Strike costs Fury, but you know, we can arguably say that Fury is irrelevant now. Buffing Throw Glaive to do double damage still doesn't even bring it to Chaos Strike levels of damage on single target, at least.
So if
I don't think...
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, so if you're, it's like even in a scenario where you would take Soul Rend, just based on the current tuning of it, you wouldn't even... we can probably talk about this more in the AoE thing, but yeah, that's also just like... Tuning hasn't even happened. Like Throw Glaive was not a button you used to do big damn last expansion, and now it's in the capstone level of the tree. So clearly there's going to be a patch note, like there have been for other classes already, where it just says Throw Glaive does like 200% more damage or something.
Well, the only issue is that if you buff it too much, now that your AoE is nuts, because like Fell Bombardment lets you throw... If you're taking 4 traits in the class tree of Mastering the Glaive and Bouncing Glaives, you're throwing 20 Throw Glaives. So that's a lot. I mean, you're basically hitting 20 targets with... You're hitting everything pretty much with a fat Throw Glaive.
I would really like them to swap the position of these though, because I think Fell Bombardment...
I agree, 100%.
Fell Bombardment is something you'd only take in AoE, but there is a scenario where you could add Throw Glaive in a single target and it would work, and this doesn't work this way. So
yeah, so that was something I was saying like super early on in this talk, is that one of my biggest gripes is that I love Throglaive. I think it could be incorporated into the rotation more. And I really wish that it shared a similar spot at the top of the tree like Blade Dance does, and maybe take those Throglaive traits out of the class tree and maybe merge them or something and put them on the Havoc side. Basically, allow players the option to use Throglaive on single target or cleave situations. Just low target cleave, single target, whatever. That's why people wanted Bloodlet back, right? They didn't want it because they wanted to strictly AoE with it. They wanted it because they wanted to press a new button and have cool interactions with it. And I think Throglaive has a ton of interactions that it can, a lot of potential interactions. Back in Legion, they had Throglaive dealt more damage each time that it bounced. You could have Throglaive. In this case, they added in Throglaive now bounces a 4th time, which is completely new and super cool. It's just if you don't really get to interact with that unless you're AoEing with it. And frankly, if you're AoEing with it, the 4th hit doesn't really matter because you're kind of just playing into Fell Bombardment, which is just giving you AoE Throglaives every 20 seconds ish.
This kind of brings us into the last point here. So we talked about it earlier. Don't need to go super big into it, but how weird of a position Netherwalk feels. If you talk about taking away the worst thing on your tree right here, it's probably selecting something down here with these two throughput wise, and maybe.
Well, Fire to the Flame is kind of pretty good single target damage. Every 20 seconds you get 20% damage for 15 seconds, and the 10k hit as well. I'm not sure what you would remove. Probably, I think you removed it earlier, but Tactical Retreat would be one to potentially remove a point on.
Yeah, I in this scenario, I removed Tactical Retreat for Netherwalk, but I don't know.
It's a lot of fury.
It's a lot of fury, and I just other classes don't have to make this choice. The way that this tree works is you go down to the very end, you have an extra point or two, and just the points are really good on the tree. That's not a bad thing. That's something you want on the tree, is that across the board there are powerful things you can select. That's fine. It's just that when you combine that with the choice to have a defensive, and Netherwalk is an extremely powerful defensive. It's a very good defensive, and it still feels bad. So I don't know. I don't know how to do it. I think the purpose of this is not to a lot of the times offer solutions, just note problems, and I think it's a problem. I don't know, it needs to feel better.
Taking a quick look at it, it seems like if you wanted to remove a point, you would have to cut off a chain, and that chain is very important, right? So the only places you can really cut off abilities would be what would your first one be? Maybe Fodder and Momentum, and the very bottom one, I forget its name, Shatter Destiny. You don't want to rip off those. Those are really good, and you can't break the chain because the chain leads to those. So
you can put it in a new spot in the chain, but yeah.
So I don't know. You just don't get those free points to spend on stuff that you really want, which is Netherwalk and Fell Rush second charge.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a basic single target thing. I don't want to spend too much time on this specifically because I think there's I think the best way to do this, we could talk about a lot of the nodes we haven't talked about yet, but we'll talk about them naturally by just swapping to a full
Giga AoE.
Fort week Giga AoE situation, and then at the end we'll kind of merge them together to talk about potential options you have for, I don't know. I think an interesting boss to think about this is actually Soul Render, right? Soul Render is a fight where yes, there are ads that spawn, and yes, you want to do a ton of AoE, but if you remember killing that boss, especially trying to kill it pre-nerf, it was you use the most efficient AoE possible, and then everyone else is just trying to kill the boss. So you want efficient AoE nodes, right? But you don't want to be losing so much single target AoE. So I feel that would be a good way to look at it. But for now, let's just talk about you're actually just an AoE demon.
Yeah. So no matter what way you go down this tree, you're gonna feel like you lost some AoE or single target in some way, like you said. For example, Momentum is good AoE because it's just flat damage. So is the crit. What is it called? Know your enemy. That's big eye beam damage, stuff like that. So I'm gonna try to go down the right side because that seems like the most logical AoE build. But yeah,
tuning can make that look a bunch of different ways. This is purely class design, what it probably should look like with all the AoE things available.
Okay, so eye beam, Dancing with Fate, Trail of Ruin, First Blood. I think Improved Chaos Strike is such a big damage increase that even on AoE you would want that. Fell Fire Heart. And then Hot Feet, because we're probably going to be going into Unbound. Then we go into Demon Blades, and then Blind Fury and Unbound and Growing Inferno. I'll skip the choice node just for a sec.
Yeah, we can talk about this later.
Because I want to get Furious Gaze, and probably Looks Can Kill, because you're AoE.
Yep.
And then, so you have 4 points, right?
Yep.
Fel Barrage can now be used with Demonic, which improves its value. And Glaive Temp. It's just more like consistency versus burst. I think it's cool that you have the option between those two. I prefer old Fel Barrage from Legion than this one, because old Fel Barrage from Legion was you could attack during the channel instead of just being sitting there for 3 seconds not doing anything. And it also was around your target, not around you. Gave it a lot more flexibility. I'd like to see that potentially be considered. But yeah, I think for now we'll just go burst AoE because we're trying to do big damn.
Sure. I want to ask you about something. So we have 3 more points to unlock the capstone level. What do you think about pathing through critical chaos to get initiative?
I think that
I feel like initiative is so insane in a dungeon scenario. It's actually so like you could min-max the fuck out of this too.
Well, I mean, you're getting that 15% crit for 5 seconds, no matter how many targets you're facing, right? Like it's all
correct. But like, I mean, like let's just say you I-beam like on the left side of the pack and you miss like the 2 mobs on the right, and like at least for like 2 extra seconds you have that crit, and then like you throw the blade dance out to like refresh it and get another one on the right side, and then you could go with a vengeful retreat, and then you're basically for the first like 10 to 12 seconds of a pull you have 15% increased crit. I just feel like that has like very high value.
Yeah, I mean you kind of do that. That's like a giga min max way to play first strike. But sometimes you don't really have the option to do that. Your immolation aura is just ticking and you just hit it.
Correct. Yeah.
Or you're playing momentum and you just Fel Rush in the pack and hits everything. But yeah, I mean, this is pretty valuable. I'm kind of just like, I didn't actually make a full AoE tree. I made like a pseudo AoE one, so I'm trying to consider what I might want to grab. But I think going into critical chaos and that is,
I feel like I actually like that that's a thing, because I feel like even going full AoE, losing critical chaos in any build will feel bad. And I feel like it's nice that you get it, or might get it.
Feeds more single target for free AoE.
Yeah.
So probably Fel Bombardment and Ragefire.
Now this seems potentially giga powerful.
Am I confused in the wording? It seems that it just stores damage based off how much crit it does, and 50% of that damage is exploded at the end, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like more immolation aura damage. It doesn't seem like it builds up like a soul capacitor. It's just like more damage, right?
Well, it expires like a soul capacitor at the end of your at the end of your immo aura. It will blow up and do all of that damage at once that it has stored up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then that's, I mean, if that's exactly how that works, then that's super cool, because there's so much min max to play with that. I'm back in Legion. There was your artifact ability. It did damage over 3 seconds, then it exploded. So you could like time it in a large AoE pull, such that when after 3 seconds, when all of the AoE is gone, you didn't explode on the single target, and it like chunked them up. I think this is gonna be really cool to play around.
All right, so numbers people are in my chat saying, and they're very excited about this. Numbers people did the math, and it's broken, and we'll need a nerf, and you'll one-shot bosses. So who knows?
Really?
I mean, imagine you're pulling.
I mean, that makes sense.
Imagine
all of Ardenwold.
Yeah. Imagine you pull all of Ardenweald, you get like the fattest fucking immo aura of all time, and you just like Fel Rush into the boss and hit it for like 30% of its health or something.
Yeah. I don't know why I didn't. I guess I'm bad at reading because I didn't read it that way.
But again, and this is why I want to point out to everyone in the chat again, one more thing. These talks are almost entirely based on class design and not tuning, because things have not been tuned for these new trees yet. That is about to happen. And what a lot of people do, and I get it, is for fun, especially theory crafters. Like, you're just trying to think of the best way to maximize things the way that they are. It's just that a lot of things will appear broken or too good because things have not been tuned around them yet, especially things that are new and not yet implemented.
Yeah, I think by design, this trait is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, definitely.
Yeah. And I would take it as well, and then take perhaps Soul Rend, and then any means necessary. And then you have 5 points to kind of
which is turbo banger in my opinion. I think there's a world where you go Shatter Destiny and you still have an extra point with like, you can get like Elysian Decree and Shatter Destiny. I just feel like I don't know.
You could do that.
I just don't know if like, what are the other options for that? Is it
well, so Chaos Theory isn't super sick AoE. Serrated Glaive, again, to be determined how much damage I-beam contributes. If you're using Fel Bombardment, you might as well go into it. It's a 2-pointer, and you're giving up. So because it's a 2-pointer, you either take 1 point and give up Elysian Decree, or you get rid of Shattered Destiny and take 2 points.
Yeah, you could do both. So like the scenario is you slam Shattered Destiny, Elysian Decree, and then or you throw out Elijah Decree and you get Serrated Glaive and keep the meta extension. This is also another thing. Like, I feel like most DHs, myself included, look at this tree and you're just like, okay, I really hope we're playing Shattered Destiny at all times. I just feel like anything in this game where you spend resources to reduce the cooldown of a powerful ability, or when you use resources in a cooldown to stay in it, that is almost universally banger. It's very, very fun to play. The only issue is
I don't want to be in meta permanently.
Yeah, that's the caveat of that, is that anytime you have it 100% of the time, that's when it gets boring. It's just more to make something that's very powerful last longer, but not infinitely. So this is pretty good, and I could see, and then again, the rest of it's based on tuning. Like, they could tune or nerf Ragefire, and then you don't take Ragefire. Currently, it sounds like it's super broken, but again, cannot emphasize enough how much not to get attached to any numbers of anything right now. But like, purely just class design wise, I feel like this is right, and also it still feels bad to take Netherwalk. I'm pretty sure Netherwalk is just this, taking it out of Serrated Glaive, I guess, but it's still just this. It's not awful. Like, if it went live like this, it wouldn't be awful. It's just like, basically, if you've been like, I have spent probably like 50 or 60 hours talking about every class tree so far. This decision can be made much better, and on class trees that have had a decision that did not feel good like this, they have changed it very routinely. So I imagine this will become easier to get, and that can be. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't.
I was just gonna say it can be done a lot of ways. It can be baking in rank 2s. It can be combining talents. It could be reducing 2-pointers to 1-pointers. It can be removing nodes entirely. Like, there's so many ways you can move around that. One thing I want to mention, you didn't take improved Fel Rush with Unbound Chaos.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's going to work.
I think it's going to work like Fel Rush damage is not additive to Unbound Chaos. I imagine this is base Fel Rush damage to which this 500% will scale off of, but I'm not positive.
Yeah. I'm also not sure that Fel Rush is going to do a ton of damage with Unbound Chaos. That's kind of the only reason I didn't take that. You're kind of not going to be Fel Rushing on cooldown with this build, right? You're only using it on your Unbounds, and comparing a point in Unbound
this talent basic
like way less.
Yeah, it's way less than Unbound, but basically this just says Unbound Chaos does 25% more damage.
This should just be baked into like momentum or something.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also, something else I want to talk about is a really powerful ability I want to talk about for AoE is Know Your Enemy and then potentially Burning Wound. We talked about Burning Wound.
Yeah, those were. I was about to just bring those two up. Like, you want to get them, but
tuning wise, maybe it makes sense to get them. This is actually a pathing thing. I wish Know Your Enemy was actually more central, so you could engage with it more easily in AoE and single target builds. In fact, I would love to see Chaotic Transformation either removed or just baked into meta, and just have. I
personally wish it was removed.
You want it removed?
Yeah.
But either way, I wish Know Your Enemy was actually more central, because this technically doesn't really interact with single target much more than AoE, especially because it currently doesn't work with Chaos Theory or Looks Can Kill based on the actual tooltips. But I just and I guess I get it, like critical chaos, I guess gonna feel really good with that, but like you're gonna like really want to stack crit more. But I feel like this is just so powerful. Even if you're not stacking crit, this has high value. I just wish it was more central. That's it. I think it being here is weird.
For sure, because it affects everything, right? So fits into the tree really well.
Yeah.
With regards to why I don't want character transformation is because I've said this before, but like on my stream and stuff, I don't know if people remember me ranting, but whenever you use meta, you can use it for a stun, you can use it for mobility, you can use it for an immunity, and the damage, right? There's so many ways to use this button. It's a super sick button. The problem with Chaotic is that now, instead of not being able to use Metamorphosis when you want to use it, you have to wait for your I-beam to come off cooldown and then use it. So when you are playing around your meta, or you're about to use your meta, you have to wait for your I-beam. And you either have to make a horrible decision of like, oh, my I-beam's coming off cooldown in 5 seconds, but man, I really want to stun this pack or something. You get that awful feeling where it's just like, do I really want to stun this pack, or do I really want to play into the fact that I'm going to get this I-beam off cooldown? If I can just wait 5 seconds and then do it, I would get the extra I-beam. I think a better way to design this so that it doesn't feel bad to use meta for its other purposes than damage would be to just make it so that I-beam has double effectiveness after using meta. So for example, it would, maybe give double the Furious Gaze and do double the damage after using meta. That way it keeps its exact same power, but it's less restrictive on how you can use meta for utility reasons. Because I love using meta to immune stuff. Back in Legion when this didn't exist, anytime I was about to use my meta, I was like, man, what could I use this for? Like, can I use this to get across the arena? Can I use it to immune something? In all of Shadowlands and for the later part of BFA, I have to like, I did that so few times because I was just like, well, I'm gonna fuck my damage if I do that.
Yeah, I understand.
And that doesn't feel good at all. So that's why I don't like Chaotic Transformation, but I think it can be improved and still exist. That's why I don't really take it, because first of all, I don't really think it's that powerful. You're playing Demonic, so your meta is 4 minutes, so you're only getting this once every 4 minutes. Yeah, for the reasons I just described.
Yeah. All right, cool.
People really like, I-beaming into meta and then I-beaming. It feels
that feels
cool
good
to do that burst, but yeah, that's just my opinion of Chaotic.
And I want to point out one thing just for the numbers frogs, because they're just going to keep showing up. That like it is understood and already talked about that, like, yes, if you're like doubling down into how the current tuning of Ragefire works, you could go. We already talked about getting Know Your Enemy, but if you're getting Know Your Enemy, it's also one more point to get Burning Wound potentially, and like Burning Wound just kind of doubles down and makes Ragefire a bit better. That's understood, but we already if it helps, we could like do a build where like we actually select that, so you all actually see that we've done that instead of talking about it. But yeah.
Probably, I don't know how you would, because like you have to take those traits to get to Ragefire. You have to take Unbound to get there, which is a bit unfortunate. I guess you'd take away from Shattered Destiny, improve meta.
Yeah, you could do
really bad to get improved meta, but
yeah, then you could also slam out of Inner Demon. Yeah, you could do something like this based on tuning. I will say, I really hope this is not what you do. Ragefire sounds very cool, but if it comes at the cost of doing this, I think that's a problem. However, I don't think there's too much more to talk about because in this scenario, because I really think a lot of this stuff's going to move around. So I think it could look very different than this. Let me go off. Okay, so now let's talk about I don't know, Soul Render, or maybe not a pure single target boss, but a boss that has adds this. Let's talk about maybe Stone Legion general.
Fate Scribe or something?
Yeah, maybe Fate Scribe. Yeah, like adds are spawning, but they don't really need to die, but you kind of want to do some AoE damage to them. Because I think like my initial take is that I feel like you're going to play a lot of single target stuff in most like raid situations, even if it's not pure single target, because you kind of just have a little bit of your cleave built in. And by actually going into the giga good AoE stuff, you actually lose quite a bit of single target.
Yeah, so let me remove all the points. I'm going to keep going for Demon Blades, although maybe it isn't always the most optimal choice. So Dancing with Fate, Trail of Ruin, First Blood, Improved Chaos Strike, Critical Chaos, Fellfire Heart, Demon Blades, Initiative, Furious Gaze, Chaos Theory, Relentless Onslaught, Blind Fury, Growing Inferno, and then it's kind of like...
This is where the choice comes down to what exactly happens during the fight, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like this could be 2 points in Unbound Chaos could be absolutely fucking insane for an ad wave spawn, right? That has to die fast. But you wouldn't necessarily need Hot Feet for that, because it might only be the one Fell Rush. Again, still feels terrible to have one Fell Rush baseline. Like maybe even this could actually just be made baseline, and then Fell Rush damage is just this node, right?
Yeah, I would prefer Fell Rush damage to be merging into Momentum or something, but that would be a better alternative for sure.
Sure. And then now, so again, it's like most raid fights, you have 2 points. Outside of Unbound Chaos, what are the options?
I would say that the three main options that I can see are the Tactical Retreat for more Fury, Looks Can Kill for more I-beam damage, and then Unbound Chaos, or kind of going into Isolated Prey and maybe getting a point in somewhere else.
Sure. Okay.
But
let's just go with Looks Can Kill and Tactical.
Sure. Pick whichever one you want.
Yep.
And then Know Your Enemy for sure, Burning Wound for sure, and then probably... Again, maybe I would probably go Inner Demon into Improved Meta into Shattered Destiny.
One thing I want to point out, apparently, this is what someone in chat said, so they could have totally made this up. But Reels did mention that putting Meta Haste into the deep talent tree felt extremely bad, so it may come out of the spec tree and just be made baseline again.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's good mainly because Demonic is basically baseline within the class tree, which it's interesting because so many decisions kind of change on the class tree if they make that what do you call it, Demonic Origins thing better, right? If they somehow balanced Demonic Origins on the class tree.
Oh yeah, where is that? It's
right over Demonic.
Oh yeah, we talked about. I don't know how you really balance.
I mean that would change so much about how you play this tree if you didn't play demonic.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think for the remaining points, I have 4. Do you have 4 as well?
I have 4 points exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So probably go into momentum is good because you get the benefit of both single target and AoE.
And then this is literally your single target tree, right? It's like is it
Huh.
I mean
Right.
I'm almost positive it is the exact same thing, but it just goes to show you that like that's kind of what I said before we filled this out is, you know, you get a lot of baked in cleave anyway. The only real decision in like a ad fight where, you know, you're in a raid and yes, ad spawns, but like the boss damage is still the primary most important thing. Like you have tools as a DH to like have quick 5 to 6 second burst anyway. It was just the 2-point options of 2 points in Unbound Chaos or looks can kill in there. And that's just a very simple, based on the scenario, easy swap.
I mean, yeah, arguably going into Unbound Chaos and then Glaive Tempest or something, very good. And the cool thing about Glaive Tempest and Fel Barrage is that, like, you know, you can identify, if you were to have to go that way, you would just be like, is Fel Barrage good? You know, can I burst a wave every 1 minute? Okay, it's maybe every 45 seconds, which is really awkward. You play Glaive Tempest and then...
So it seems like the single target variant of the build is exactly what we talked about earlier, which is like the 2 points reduced out of here, probably just throw it into looks and kill, tactical retreat, slam down momentum, burning wound, and then down to the meta. Then your 1 point is like either like 1 point in Unbound Chaos, which is weird, or most likely Elysian or fodder. And then your AoE variant is reducing looks can kill and tactical retreat, slamming it into Unbound Chaos, and that point at the very end of the tree is just most likely being slammed into again either Elysian or Fel Barrage instead.
Yeah, or probably not Fel Barrage. No, you would need 3 points to make that good.
And just again, we don't really have a point to get the additional charge of Fel Rush, but we've spoken about hot feet enough. Okay, so
very, very sad to not get that. I think the only trait that I may be overvaluing on this tree a little bit, like, because again, I don't know how to work out, is probably just the tactical retreat, especially in an AoE. But I don't know. I'll just have to.
I mean, I feel like not even mentioning the Fury thing. I feel like the tactical retreat node just goes so hand in hand with the 5-second reduced CD with initiative.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So like. But either way, we've talked about all this. This is an excellent conversation. I just kind of want to give you a few... We've talked about problems, good things. Just a few seconds to wrap it up and talk about what Demon Hunter could be looking like in Dragonflight with some of the proposed changes offered and just how the general tree looks in right now.
Well, I do want to say, like I said earlier, I mean, the class is just better off than it is in Shadowlands right now, which is a really good thing. Like, no matter... Like, even if this were to go live, I think everyone would have a better time, which is a super good thing. Are you just saying, like, overall, what changes would I make to this? Like, the biggest ones?
No, well, we kind of already talked about a lot of those. More just like, you know, if you're a Havoc DH in a Raid next expansion, outside of the random RNG lotto slot machine of being tuned really, really high for a particular raid based on tier or just random tuning or whatever, like, what is a Havoc bringing to the raid better than they used to, maybe? Or do they have more single target? It seems like they definitely have a more integrated single target kit overall in a raid, while still maintaining the like class fantasy and the thing they've always been good at, which is just like kind of passive cleave or having a little bit of burst damage for ads with like a little more option.
Yeah, so I would say, I guess in Shadowlands you didn't have as much as what you had in BFA, which was that passive cleave, and you're getting that a lot more now, which is like a huge benefit. I mean, you know how good BFA Demon Hunter was performance-wise, so
yeah, I
think that's definitely one benefit. It doesn't seem like you're getting too much extra than what you already had. You know, you're still bringing darkness, you're still bringing that OP 5% magic buff. You know, you still have your burst AoE tools and your consistent AoE tools. You know, you still have your stuns and stuff. I mean, it's not too different, mainly compared to BFA from Shadowlands. It's just a kind of an improvement.
Okay, I think we have some banger information here potentially off the top ropes. I don't know what it is, but Reels came into my chat and just linked a link, but like links don't show up, and it looks like he's linking a feedback for Demon Hunter's post that was just posted. So, all right. So first thing, Glide will be removed as one of Momentum's trigger skills in a future update. So that's just gone. I guess that seemed obvious to me, but let's see.
That's really nice.
Yep. That was just right during the actual thing. Unfortunately, if we started this a couple hours later, could have had a lot better takes on... Well, no, we actually mentioned the scenario where No, actually, that went great because we just talked about how good momentum could be if glide specifically wasn't a part of it. So,
Yep.
let's see. Ultimately agree that it outweighs the benefits. Glide will be removed. Very divisive. Strongly love or hate it. Talent tree is an ideal system for it to exist as an option. Perfect. With that in mind, a capstone position puts a greater emphasis. Oh, here we go. Than it should have. And so momentum will be swapping positions with essence break. And essence break will be modified in a way to further emphasize its intended identity as a medium cooldown controlled burst option. That sounds lit, right? So momentum is way more accessible. It's like, 4 points earlier in the tree. And essence break is moved into an actual capstone position, but is being reworked to further emphasize its medium cooldown controlled burst option. And I mean, obviously that just means it will be buffed.
Yeah. I think Cycle of Hatred and Essence Break play into each other pretty well, so I think that's a good thing. It's just now you're locking momentum behind a single target isolated prey thing, and if... Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess momentum's now only a single target thing, technically speaking. Maybe if there was a way to branch into...
Oh, that's
momentum.
a good point, actually. You'd be... Basically, momentum just becomes a 2-point talent here in AoE because you'd have to be selecting something that has basically no relevance.
No value, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, but also the pathing could change.
Yeah,
involving
if
all
the
that, too.
pathing changed, then, problem solved.
Yeah. Okay. Hell yeah.
I think that's a good thing. I think what it would probably change for the single target tree is you would now want to take the Felrush trait, but again, nobody wants to play... Okay, I'm assuming. I assume nobody wants to play with one charge of Felrush. This just shouldn't exist. It's probably one of the biggest things that sticks out in the tree for me.
Agreed.
Perhaps, I mean, no, I'm not even going to suggest it. I was going to say put it in the class tree, but I just want it to be baseline.
All right, I think that's basically it. As usual, insanely insightful information, and thanks for sitting down and talking about it. I imagine we might do a shorter version of these in the future if they make like more distinct changes than that with a ton of pathing to where it actually changes.
Like an update?
Yeah, like a big update, like kind of what hunters have gotten. Like if they get like a nice hunter blue post one of these weeks, we'll just hop in here real quick and kind of talk about how that affects Demon Hunter. So thank you for showing up. That was really fun.
Thanks for having me. I hope I covered everything and I didn't miss anything, and that somebody because I mean there were a couple things that I had to learn, like I learned that Rage Fire's OP, but I think I covered everything.
Yeah, no, I mean the only things that usually people miss on this is like obviously there's very dedicated theorycraft and numbers people that don't think as much about like how things should be, and they kind of ignore the fact that the tuning phase has largely not even happened for 90% of the abilities in the game that clearly need to be tuned differently because of their position on the tree. And they'll point out that like something is technically wrong because of some weird interaction with something that exists currently on alpha, but like you basically did an amazing job of looking at this for how things should work based on like using just logically guessing how it should work. Yeah. So that was great. So yeah, talk to you again soon.
Later.
Yep. So yeah. All right. And as of this moment, I am officially done with class tree talks, at least in their initial form. That is the last class. Did 13 of those motherfuckers. That was a lot.